Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, Reading with the Crew.
Thank you so much there, Jack61. And thank you so much for that introduction. And guys, welcome. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, beautiful people. It's great to be here. We have to be thankful for the things that we have. There's just so many disasters in the world at the moment. We give a thought and a prayer for all the nasty things that are happening around the world. And we also think of those who have been in prison and who are innocent. And let me tell you guys, here at the Foul Play team, with your support and your help and encouragement, we do this for Teresa Halbach, the memory of Teresa Halbach. We also do it to seek justice for both Stephen and Brendan Dassey. Thank you so much, guys. My name is Dr. Silkman, and I'm from the Foul Play team. And today, guys, we're going to be continuing our series. And I'll tell you what, guys, we've got a real cracker for you guys, as always. And I'll be answering some of your questions from last week, including a really important question that was asked in last week's chat, which has totally changed my view on a certain thing, which has been awesome. Well, look, guys, so that we don't waste too much time, I'd like to welcome our esteemed panel. First of all, we have Jack61. Jack61, how are you coming along?
Well, doing very well. Just a little behind today, but I think we can get caught up pretty quickly. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting live tonight. That's all I'll say.
I think it will be, that's for sure. Thank you so much, Jack61. And next we have Neverly. Neverly, how are you coming along?
Hello, boss. Everybody else on the panel, everybody in the chat. We have 27 people watching for now, but it's
Fantastic.
still early. We will double that in no time. Yeah, it's great to be here. Can't wait for this podcast. Dr. Silkman has been cooking this one for a while now, so let's hear it. And special welcome back to our mod, Alice in Wrongful Conviction Land.
Fantastic.
You've been missed.
Thank you. Yeah, she certainly has. Thank you so much, Neverly.
You're welcome.
And next we have Alice. Alice, good to see you here.
Hi everyone.
Hey.
It's nice to be back. I'm back, bitches. I'm back. So yeah, good to see everyone. I've been listening to what you have been doing over the last wee while, and it's bloody fantastic that you and Neverly have done. I was actually looking at the book and I had a chuckle to myself. The Canine Noses chapter is a 4-page chapter, and we have gone and done it in bloody 20 odd parts. So I was having a wee chuckle to myself about that the other day there, that it's 4 pages and then we've managed to do this, but it's fantastic what you have done, and I can't wait to see what you've got for us tonight, Doc. And hello everyone in chat. It's great to see all the usual culprits in chat.
Thank you so much, Alice, and welcome back. We really missed your wisdom and your pointed comments. You don't mess around, and we're so fortunate to have you on the panel today. Thank you so much. Next, we've got that cheeky lad, Andy B. Andy B, how are you coming along?
I'm coming along fine, thank you, Doc. Hello to everyone in panel and chat, and a special hello to Alice. We've missed your effing and jeffing, so it would be nice to have it tonight. So I'm looking forward to another ripper of a podcast and Alice's contribution. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much there, Andy B. And next, we have Dark Side of the Moon. Dark Side of the Moon, welcome. Good to see you here.
Hey, everybody. I'm glad to see Alice back. Looking forward to the night.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dark Side of the Moon. And next, we have I Don't Recall. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Reading with the Crew.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And next we have Just Rhonda. Just Rhonda, welcome. How are you coming along?
Thank you, Dr. Silkman. Hi to everybody on the panel and everyone in chat. And it's great to be here. I'm excited to see what we've got tonight.
Fantastic, fantastic. And I just want to say, I really enjoyed your tour, your trip that you did around Oklahoma with the crew. That was really, really amazing. It's good to get that first seat perspective, and it was awesome. If you haven't seen the video, check it out and make sure you subscribe to Just Rhonda. Fantastic. Well, look, guys, we'll make a start. Yeah, we'll make a start. And again, guys, my name is Dr. Silkman. I'm from the Foul Play team, and I live in Adelaide, South Australia, the land down under. And a big shout out to us, the Australian women's soccer team beating France. Oh my God, that was a ripper. But guys, for those of you who are in chat, let us know where you're listening from. As you can see here on the panel, we're truly international. We're from all over the world, and it'd be great to see where you guys are from as well. Neville, do you see everyone in chat?
I sure do.
Can you call out who's in chat? And Jack61,
yes.
Are you able to put up the very first slide? Thank you, Neville.
You're welcome. So the first one to show up gets extra bonus points is under your cards. Hello, my dear. We have Anthony Hills. He's wondering where we were. 3 minutes late. Right? But we are here, Anthony. I know. He always busts our chops. Mary Kopp, Just Rhonda. Hey, there's you, Dr. Silkman.
Hey.
JD. Hello. Hello. Crockett Thompson. Hello, my friend. Angie Dickinson. Hello. Kelly McCallion. Gloria.
Welcome.
Pete Moss. Yes. Welcome, welcome. And I saw Charlotte Dowling. Dark Side of the Moon. Special thanks to her. She does such a great job as a moderator. Always has. I also saw Nan's Life 7. You know, she's an artist. And one of these days she will she needs a little bit of encouragement to post her art so we can auction it or we can spread the news. Yes, she does that. So please do that. You can do it in Foul Play if you'd like. I saw TJ Anderson. He's lurking, of course. And everybody's saying welcome back to Alice.
Fantastic.
Marquez, our friend Marquez is here. Yes. So if I didn't call your name, please forgive me. We will go back as we see your name pop in. All right. Welcome, everybody, once again. So good to see you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. And again, we all appreciate you coming on and supporting us. And that's absolutely awesome. The only thing that we ask, guys, is please be respectful of one another. If you got like I said, if you got a theory or something you want to discuss, hey, bring it to Discord. There's always somebody there to discuss theories and what you think happened. No problems at all. Thank you so much. Well, look, guys, welcome, especially new people here who've just joined us today. We're going to be continuing our series, Reading with the Crew. And essentially what Neville and I did many months ago is that we've been reading passages from John Ferak's excellent book, The Wrecking Crew. And at the moment, guys, if you're following along, we're doing chapter 14, entitled Canine Noses. And as Alice pointed out, it's only a relatively short chapter, but we are now on part 21. We have really, really deep dived and we have found some amazing, amazing things. And again, a big shout out and a big thank you to Duke, who discovered Bucket Man. And that was just truly an amazing piece of research. And hopefully we'll have him on again very soon. He may join the panel today to discuss further findings by Duke. And it's just incredible what he has found and what the Foul Play team has found. Jack61.
Yeah, Duke said he'd be a few minutes late. He's got family function or whatever, but I think he'll be here soon.
Awesome. So guys, please We're on episode 44 of the Reading with the Crew series. If you like what we do, please subscribe, put your DNA on the thumbs up button, and please share our podcasts. We've been getting an incredible amount of feedback. And like I said, guys, when you write down your comments, I always check them, follow them up, and I'll tell you what, today it's going to be a game changer. I tell you what, some really good stuff happening. So guys, please hit the notification bell so that you can get notification of our podcasts. Fantastic. So what are we going to do today? Right? Today, what we're going to do is several things. We're going to ask a very important question, and that is, did the foul odor really come from the Avery salvage yard? So we're going to have another look at Growell again. And I'll tell you what, this is going to blow your mind. Also, I didn't really comprehend this, but Kathleen Zellner actually debunked Robert Fabian about Stephen Avery's burn barrel. And she did it, guess how? Looking at the direction of the wind that was blowing that day. So it complements what we have been doing on the Foul Play channel, right? And the other thing, if time permits, we're going to have a look at the bizarre events that occurred on November the 10th, right? A lot of very interesting things occurred on November the 10th, including the medical examiner signing Teresa Horbach's death certificate. Jack 61.
Yeah, I don't want to get us off track, but there was some really fucking bizarre events that happened on the morning of November 6th, too.
Yes.
We'll get more into that later first time, but I just had to say it.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And so, guys, the important thing here, what the Foul Play team does, and I believe does extremely well, is that we remain focused on the case. And by that, we need to prove that Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey were set up, especially Stephen Avery was set up so that he can go back to prison. We all know, and through the open mics that Jack 61 and the team are doing, those depositions were very, very damning and damaging to the state, right? And so what we need to do is to conclusively prove that something really nefarious took place, right? And trust me, Kathleen Zellner, I am absolutely convinced she is aware of all these things. And I have sent several of our podcasts to her. So hopefully that she is aware of what we have been discovering. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the very first slide, please? So like I said, the great thing about what we do here with the Reading with the Crew is that we're very interactive, right? We're not perfect. We don't know all the answers, and we listen. We listen to feedback. And this caught my attention. Hugh Fraser last week wrote this comment, right? And I'll read it out. I quote, "Isn't it the case that a west-northwest wind blows from, not to, the west-northwest?" And in brackets, hopefully no problem for the analysis in this episode. Now, if you remember from last week's Reading with the Crew, I was talking about the wind blowing to the west and the wind blowing to the west-northwest. Hugh reminded me, no, I think you've actually got it round the wrong way. And that made me reanalyze and go back to what we did. And I tell you what, it's very, very interesting indeed. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So we know that the searchers and the investigators eventually found human cremains, cut, burnt cremains. So we need to ask the question, and these cut, burnt remains, according to the narrative, came from Stephen Avery's burn pit. So the question we need to ask is, where did the foul odor originate from? This is on the night of October the 31st, right? So when you think about it, there are potentially 3 sources on the Avery salvage yard that we need to look at. The first is Stephen Avery's burn pit. Now we know that Sergeant Jason Jost, he discovered the very first bone fragment on November the 8th. That day, the burn pit was sifted, and basically we had the box of bones, right? But what's important here is the observation by Josh Redaunt. Josh Redaunt said and stated that he saw a fire on the night of October the 31st. But he was very, very general, right? He wasn't 100% specific. He said that the fire, it looked like it had come from a burn barrel, right? And he saw no one around the fire. What is very interesting is that we have also Stephen Avery's burn barrel. And Siders, who's part of Search Team A that had Bushman in it, and Jost and Seglob, he basically found the burnt electronics in Stephen Avery's burn barrel. And it's very, very interesting that in convicting a murderer, even in the little clip, right, guys, you can see that, making a murderer didn't show the burn barrel, didn't show the burnt electronics, etc., etc. Well, Siders found the burnt electronics in Stephen Avery's burn barrel on November the 7th, right? That's the infamous day of Cuss Road. Now, what is incredible here, guys, I'm not sure whether you were aware of it, but Robert Fabian, who was on the Avery salvage yard on October the 31st, the evening of October the 31st, he stated that he saw smoke from the burn barrel, but not only that, the smoke hit him in the face, right? And we're going to be investigating that because that's very, very important. And finally, we have the burn barrels, the under burn barrels. And allegedly, there were 4 burn barrels, right, that belonged to Barb Younger. What is interesting here, guys, is that Brutus, who's a cadaver dog, did 2 hits, alerted and barked at 2 burn barrels, 2 of the under burn barrels. And guys, we know that eventually the investigators found cut, burnt human remains, right? So when you think about it, guys, any one of these 3 sites potentially could have been a site of burning, a site of cremation, and potentially could have given a foul odor, right? Because remember, on October the 31st, the evening of October the 31st, Growell had made the comment that he smelt something he had never smelt before. Guys, do we have any comments? Do we have any comments so far? Do we have any questions so far? We're all good? Now, the state are saying that Teresa Hall Bark was cremated in Stephen Avery's burn pit. Even though there were bones that were found in Yonder burn barrel number 2, the state are saying that it was Stephen that placed those bones in the burn barrel, right? So the state has blamed everything on Stephen. So let's have a look at the burn pit, right? So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? And guys, please interrupt. If you've got any questions in chat, put a little Q and we'll try and answer your question immediately. So what I did was, if we have a look at this incredible aerial map, this shows the position of the Avery salvage yard, Redaunt's quarry, which was massive, And right next to Redon's quarry is the Manitowoc County gravel pit, right? Now, Groel was near the rock crushing machine, right? Because he stated that he was very close to County Highway Q. And right on the bottom of the right-hand corner of the where you can see the Avery salvage yard in yellow is approximately where Stephen Avery's burn pit was. Okay? And essentially, what Groel is stating is that a smell that he's never smelt before wafted from or came from the Avery salvage yard, right? So you can see with the map on the right-hand side, the directions, Groel was west, right? Groel was west of the Avery salvage yard. So keep that in mind. And you could tell that Groel was a long distance away from the Avery salvage yard. Now remember, the impression that Kratz is trying to give everyone is that the smoke came from Stephen Avery's burn pit and drifted across, and Groel smelt it, right? Because remember, even Sergeant Jason Jost made the comment that, Josh Redon had seen a fire. And according to Jost, he said it was rather large. And that's not what Redon said. So this map, orientate yourself. You can see where Stephen Avery's burn pit was, right? And Groel was near County Highway Q at the rock crushing machine. So, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? Do we have any questions so far? Are we all good? And welcome, Duke. Do you want to say hi? Thank you for joining us.
What's up, everyone? I'm really happy to be here, and we'll likely have to jump on and jump off just a little bit. But I spent the past week or so kind of on vacation, and I'm back now, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of this episode, Doc. So thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And you sound so much better as well. Fantastic. Neverly, do you see the slide A3? We'll just wait for Neverly to come back on. Do you see slide A3, Neverly?
Yes, I do.
All right. Would you like to read it out? So this is what... Now, please note who wrote the report. It was Sturdivant. And Sturdivant was with Sergeant Jason Jost, who discovered the first bone fragment on November the 8th. And it's Sturdivant who had interviewed Groel. Neverly, would you like to read this out?
Sure. On November 11, 2005, at approximately 11:50 a.m., Special Agent Thomas Sturdivant interviewed Travis P. Groel, white male, date of birth 5/28/83, who works for F. Redon's Sons Incorporated as a hopper loader and was working on Monday, 10/31/2005, at the pit on County Highway Q. Groel provided his home address as such and such. Groel stated he worked from 4 a.m. until noon and then from 4:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Monday, 10/31/05. Groel stated he was running the hopper and operating the loader throughout the day and evening. Groel stated it was after 5:30 or 6 p.m. that he smelled a foul odor coming from the Avery salvage yard area. Groel stated he could not see a fire or smoke as it was dark outside and described the odor as something that, quote, I never smelled before, end of quote. Groel distinctly recalled that it was Monday, Halloween night, that he was working and that he normally doesn't work at night. The wind was blowing towards the pit from the Avery property. Groel stated he mentioned this foul odor to two other employees, Chris Peterson, who can be reached at this number, and David Trammell, nicknamed Cuba, who can be reached at such and such number. The interview with Groel was concluded at 12 noon.
All right. Now, guys, if you're reading this report, would you say, now I'm going to go around the panel and also in chat, would you say that the wind was coming towards Groel, right? Remember where Groel was, and he stated the wind was blowing towards the pit from the Avery property. So would you say that the wind was blowing towards Groel? Alice, what do you reckon?
No, not towards them at all.
Okay. NDB.
Well, in the statement, he says it's blowing towards him from the salvage yard, so the wind is blowing from the northwest.
Okay. Dark Side of the Moon, what do you think?
I'm still not too sure.
Okay. Interesting. All right, Duke, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's written in a confusing way, and I'd have to look at the map again. But I do believe that whichever direction, that's the smell that he's smelling is coming, I believe, towards him. So I believe it's coming. Yes, that's the wind is coming towards him.
Okay, interesting. I don't recall.
Well, maybe I'm confused, but if it's coming out, the wind is out of the northwest, then it should not be blowing towards him.
West,
If it's
northwest.
coming from the side.
Yeah, sorry, I
West.
had that wrong. It's from the northeast.
No.
Yeah, sorry about that.
West, northwest. I'll put the map back up.
Yep.
So I'm not sure, but yeah, it doesn't seem like it would.
Yep. So it is a very confusing statement, right? Jack 61, what do you think?
Well, if you look at the map, as you would normally look at the map, I mean, the west is at the top. So if we say west, northwest, and if you can see my cursor on screen, it's coming from basically this direction, from up here
That direction
down.
there.
There's no way it can be coming from the pit. No way.
Yep.
I'm sorry. No,
Correct.
I don't believe Sturdivant's report as written. I don't.
Yep. There's something very, very interesting going on. Just Rhonda. What do you think about the wind direction?
If it's coming from the west-northwest, then it's the opposite direction of what it's trying to make it sound like. Yeah.
Yep.
At least that's how I read it or understand it.
Yep. Correct. Neville, thank you, just Rhonda. Neville, what about yourself?
Well, if the wind was blowing west-northwest, then that is blowing from the direction that it's not on this map. It's behind the county highway Q. So it's coming towards Groel, but from the very opposite way.
Boy.
Nowhere near the pit. However, to confuse you, Sturdivant said the wind was blowing towards the pit from the Avery property. So what does he mean by that? I don't know. So this statement, you see how reports could be very confusing and also deceiving and also misinforming. I'm not saying this was nefarious. I'm just saying that it's actually misinformed because due to teamwork, we now know that this is not the case, what is stated in the report. It's coming from behind him. If you look at the picture, it's like from above towards that, then towards the Redan quarry, then towards Avery. Am I reading it right? Okay.
Correct. Duke, did you have a comment?
Well, I guess I'm just confused. Maybe Jack can throw that report back up because the way they interchanged the phrase "the pit," very intriguing, because we have the Manitowoc County gravel pit, which is referred to as the pit quite often, and then Stevens' property that's referred to as the pit. So can you throw that back up one more time so I can see it again?
Yep, that's slide A2, I think, Jack 61. Is that the one you're referring to, Duke? Slide A2?
I believe so.
Yeah.
No, it's
slide
A3 and it's up.
That's
A2 and it's up.
A3 is the statement, correct?
Yeah, that's what I wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, it's up.
Right, because you can. Duke, do you want to comment?
Oh no, go ahead, Doc. Sorry.
I was going to say, if you have a look at the key points that he goes, he smelled a foul odor coming from the Avery salvage yard. And the second important comment, he said the wind was blowing towards the pit from the Avery property. So the impression you would get from that report is that the wind was blowing towards him. So the source of the combustion, the source of the smell, was coming from the Avery salvage yard, giving the hint that Stephen was cremating Teresa Horbach on the night of October the 31st. Is that the way you guys read it? Is that the way you guys see it? Duke?
That's how I believe they're trying to portray it, yes.
Correct. So what I did, sorry, Jack 61.
Yeah, just a brief comment, and I know this doesn't apply necessarily to other places in the world, so please forgive what I'm going to say, because this is pretty common in the United States. Not always, but typically speaking, if you go from California towards the east to North Carolina, New York, all the way across the country, typically our weather and wind comes from west to east. That's really typical. Now, not always. A lot of times we get weather systems from Canada and so forth, and so it's from the west northwest. That's pretty normal, to be honest.
Correct. So again, Hugh's comment made me think, right? Because I looked at the statement, and anyone reading this statement will come up to the conclusion, the wind is coming towards Growell. So Jack 61, are we able to look at slide A4, please? So, of course,
excuse me, Dr. Silkman, before we proceed onto the next one. When they interviewed Joshua Dant, and what Joshua Dant said and what they wanted him to say and what they documented were three different things. I'm wondering if Growell was telling the truth, or was he susceptible to their pressure to change the direction of the wind?
Well, either he changed the direction of the wind or Sturdivant changed the direction of the wind. But we'll go through this. Yeah, Duke. Thank you, Neville. Duke.
Well, it's not like Sturdivant has any problem lying whatsoever. And I think a point to remember in this is that we need to seriously take everything that's on paper with a grain of salt.
Correct.
Proven time and time again that unless there's something that can support what's on paper, there's no real reason that we should believe it at this point.
100% correct. And you'll see that Kathleen Zellner used exactly the same logic to debunk Robert Fabian, which is amazing. Jack 61.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Duke. They don't have a problem lying on paper if they, and no supporting documentation. Look what they did at the burn pit. I mean, come on. And I, as just a person thinking about law enforcement, I don't like saying that. I don't. And so I don't want anybody out there to think that, Jack just, he doesn't like cops. That's not it at all. When you are making accusations of this nature, you got to be able to back it up. We're not talking about a minor offender measure. Come on.
Yep. Yeah, correct. You must be able to back it up. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually debunk what Groel said. And this is very, very disturbing. And Neverly, do you have a comment?
Debunk what Groel said, or debunk what was said about Groel in the report?
Oh, well, what was written in the report by Sturdivant.
There we go.
Right?
Good.
So
I like that.
If we have a look at this on slide A4, right? So what I did is I went to 2 different meteorological sites that keep a record of all the weather on every day. And I checked specifically for the weather report on October the 31st, 2005. Now, at around about 5:30, it was already dark, right? It was actually dark. Now, it did downpour later on during the evening, and probably around this time, there may have been some drizzle. But definitely, and I think Duke can back me up on this, on the evening, late evening of October the 31st, it downpoured, because we know that when Fassbender took off the tarp off the RAV4, it bucketed down with rain. So Groel didn't mention anything about rain, right? So I checked 2 different meteorological sites that keep a record. And look at this. This is the important time from 5:25 to 7:45. That's the window that Groel would have been outside working, and when he smelt the foul odor. Now, look at the direction of the wind. It says west, west, northwest, and it was going around about 6 to 5 miles per hour. The extreme right means that there were no sudden gusts of wind, 0 miles per hour, right? So my original scenario A, was that the wind was blowing towards where Groel was. So the wind was coming from the east and blowing to the west. The wind was coming from the east, southeast, and going to the west, northwest. That's scenario A. Guys, would you agree? Is everyone happy with that? In scenario A, if we take at face value what Groel said, the wind is coming towards him. Jack 61.
Yeah, I would agree with that. According to the statement that Sturdivant wrote, that's exactly right.
Correct. Correct. So if we have a look at the next slide, so this scenario A, this is my original scenario. So if we have a look at the next slide, why is this important? Now, if we have a look at slide A5, the reason why this is important is because if you have a look all the way down on the right-hand side, that's where the Avery salvage yard was, and those 2 red arrows depict where Stephen Avery's burn pit was. In that same general area, you have Stephen Avery's burn barrel, and you have the 4 Yunder burn barrels in fairly close proximity. Have a look where Groel was. Groel was where you see that picture of the dog. He was in that area there in the Redonce quarry. If the wind was blowing towards him, then if there was a cremation event at the Avery salvage yard, the wind would have been blowing to the west and also away from Groel, because it was going west-northwest. However, we discussed in last week's podcast, if there was a cremation event in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, then the smell would have gone directly to Groel, right? If there was a cremation event in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. To make matters interesting, we know that Sergeant Jason Jost was in Redonce Quarry with 2 dog handlers. They're cadaver dogs. We also know that Sergeant Jason Jost was in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. This is all on November the 7th And there were 4 dog handlers, 4 cadaver dogs with him. Jack 61, Duke, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever seen those reports from those dog handlers. Has anyone seen them?
No, as far as I know, there are no incident reports written about his activity, Joe's activities after dark over in the quarry or the Manitowoc County gravel pit.
Duke, thank you, Jack 61. Duke, have you seen them?
There's no reports. We just know from our own investigating and listening to calls and looking at notes on backs of pieces of paper what's going on there. There's absolutely nothing from Joseph. And why would there be? He didn't want to write about the biggest discovery in this case, which is the
100%
quote-unquote remains of Teresa Hallback. So why would he want to write about him and his 4 cadaver dogs and what they're finding in the Manitowoc County gravel pit?
Correct. Thank you so much, Duke. Jack 61.
And on that note, it's exactly what Duke is talking about. I've requested all of this information from Manitowoc County, and I have heard back they're working on it, my request.
Yes. Yes.
What Yost wrote on the back of those search team reports, because we've never seen them as far as I know.
Yep, and he also gave GPS coordinates, and they took photographs. Now, this is going to be very relevant, as you'll see in a second. So, if we take the wind direction as going towards Growell, then the statement, the wind directions are consistent with what Growell said. However, there's a big problem. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? Are there any questions in chat so far? Are we all good? We're all good? All right.
Anthony Hills actually has one, but I don't know the answer to it. He goes, "Where's the girls from Jambo Creek Road who snuck out, saw and heard the voices from the quarry?"
Well. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. But let me see if we can answer that by having a look at this, right? So this is scenario B. Now, Hugh Fraser pointed out a very interesting fact, and that is when you see west, it means that the wind is coming from the west. When you see west-northwest, it means the wind is coming from the west-northwest region. That's standard in the meteorological industry. So, if we have a look at the map down below, the wind is coming from the west and blowing to the east. The wind was coming from west, northwest, and blowing east, southeast. So if we have a look at scenario B, which is the true wind direction, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide? Because now we have got a head scratcher. If we have a look at the wind direction, if you have a look at the Avery salvage yard on the bottom right-hand corner, if the wind is blowing from the west, it means that if there was a burning in Stephen Avery's burn pit, the smoke, the smell is going away from where Growell is. Can everyone see that? Guys, can everyone see that? If there was a fire going on in the burn pit, the wind and the smell are going away from Growell. Guys, do you agree?
There's no doubt.
Jack 61.
Absolutely. Yeah, it wouldn't be blowing towards him. It'd be blowing completely away from him.
Away from him. Exactly.
The wind is blowing away from him. But there's another problem. If there was a cremation event in the Manitowoc County gravel pit on October the 31st, then the smell will be blowing away from Growell. Away from Growell. Now, this is very intriguing because it may mean that there was no cremation event, potentially no cremation event in the Manitowoc County gravel pit on the night of October the 31st. But remember, Brutus gave a hit on November the 10th. That was Alert 15 in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, which we'll talk about. And furthermore, there were 3 debris piles that contain human burnt bones in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. So Neverly alluded to something very interesting, and I want you guys to comment. If Growell smelt something, that means he was downwind, not upwind, of potentially a cremation event. Guys, comment. What do you think? So whatever was being burnt was further west of him. Jack 61.
Yeah, I mean, looking at A7, if you say the wind was blowing from the west towards the northwest, west-northwest, that's where the wind was coming from. I guess number one, what did he smell? I mean, it's pretty subjective. I mean, he said it was an awful foul odor. I mean, there are a lot of things, especially out in the wilderness. You get all kinds of odors that waft up. That's number one. If somebody was burning, particular entrails or something that really stunk like high heaven that he would remember. I don't know, Doc, yes. But it would have to be. I mean, if you're looking at the map, just purely looking at the map, it would have to be. If you look at the W and County Highway Q, it would have to be to the left over there, maybe towards where A7 is, blowing downward, and he caught a waft of whatever the hell it was. That's the way I see it.
Right. What is intriguing is that, remember the GPS coordinates that were written on the back of that report? They are very close to Jambo Creek.
Yeah.
The corner, right, where Jason Jost was.
Yep.
So anything that's upstream of Growell, if there was a cremation event, the wind will be blowing towards his direction, but it has to be above him, not below him. So if the wind was truly coming from the west, west-northwest, then that means that whatever Stephen was burning that night could not have gone to Growell. Guys, would you all agree? Alice.
Hi, Doc. Just a couple of things from chat. Danny Mellis in chat. Hi, Danny. He says most of the pits are quite a bit below standard ground level, which will also impact winds.
Correct.
And then
yep.
Craig Swalby. Hi, Craig. I've not seen your name before, but I've been away for a while, so hello and welcome. Question. Is it possible to rotate slide A7 90 degrees counterclockwise to orientate north to the top?
Jack 61, are you able to easily do that?
I can't do the slide because it's in a PowerPoint, but I can do the photograph. I will do that.
Okay.
So give me just a second while you guys are talking. I'll pop it on screen.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Crockett Thompson. I'm sorry, sweetie. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to do Crockett's question. Was any bones found west of Highway Q?
Well, this is the issue, right? The only evidence that we have, material that's in evidence, are cremains found allegedly in the burn pit, in Yonder Burn Barrel number 2, and also in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. We've got no evidence of any bones found elsewhere, except both Kratz and Fallon and also Fassbender admitted that there were bones at Cuss Road, but they're nowhere near County Highway Q. We don't know. We do not know. And because we don't have the dog reports of the cadaver dogs that were in Redon's quarry and also in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. We don't know what was found. Jack 61.
On that note, I have requested those dog reports as well from these
Yes.
other whoever the hell it is. And now I've popped on screen. They fixed this issue
beautiful.
that I had with Microsoft Photos. It's working now. So north is at the top. It's oriented up here.
Yes, correct.
So there you go.
Correct. So if the wind was blowing northwest, you can see that there's no way that anything from the Avery salvage yard is going towards Growell, which is very, very interesting. So that scenario there, the true wind direction, is inconsistent with Growell's statement. Neverly.
Well, now I'm questioning the whole thing. For somebody to say it was the smell like I've never smelled before, it's a pretty powerful statement, no matter where it was coming from. You know what I mean? For that, I would like to believe Groel what he said. The direction that was coming from, I could see them jimmying it and molding it into their theory, how it could, support their narrative. I could see that. But who could just say like that or be talked into saying that it was a smell like I've never smelled before? This is a person that works around, surrounded by farms and cows and all kinds of stuff. You know what I mean?
Correct. But remember, there's one person who definitely knows the direction of where the Avery salvage yard was, and that was Sturdivant. Because remember, on November the 8th, he's there. He's there sifting the cremains, right, Duke? He's there at the Avery salvage yard. And on the 10th is when he interviews Growell, right? So all you need to do is change 2 words, away to from, and there you've got the narrative back to front. Duke.
The issue that Sturdivant runs into here, if his goal is to have us believe that this smell that Groel is talking about is coming from Stephen Avery's burn pit, unfortunately, there's no one closer to the burn pit that is corroborating this smell that he's discussing. And the fact that we have multiple people that supposedly saw a 10-foot fire, didn't smell anything bad.
Correct.
Doesn't do his story any good. So I do take Groel's statement with a grain of salt. I think it's interesting. I also think that it forces me to look at who Groel is and get to know him a little bit better as well. And I think that there's some funny things going on with some of those Redont workers. And there
is.
It's another dive that you got to go learn about. But yeah, I do take what he's saying here with a grain of salt. And I don't know I'm not quite sure if he's a willing participant in Sturdivant's discussion here, or if this is just a quick little switch by him, hoping that Groel wouldn't really notice or care.
100% correct. But before I get you on, Jack 61, what happens if there was a burning event at Cuss Road? Could the smell potentially go towards Growell? Duke.
Oh, now I gotta look again. Hold on.
Yep. So if you have a look at the picture that Jack 61 has got, Cuss Road is up towards the top on where it says north. That's where Cuss Road is, very close to the N. And then you've got the west. So wind coming from the west, northwest. Is it possible or is it impossible?
I don't think so. If that wind was pretty constant, it would be blown away from him. The smell would have to be really coming from over here on the left. I don't know if anybody can see my cursor, but above, and even more down towards the A7 direction to have wafted through where Groel said he was.
Yep. Correct.
Okay, I
So,
have a question.
yeah,
Okay, if Groel said this and we take it at the face value, I never smelled anything like this before. It was coming from wherever. He said that he mentioned this foul odor to the two other employees, this Chris guy and Cuba guy. Do we have any reports
correct.
on that? Are they going to
Not
confirm this?
not that I've seen. Jack 61, have you seen any additional reports?
Well, that was exactly what I was going to ask. I never brought it up. Were these other guys interviewed? And it's possible that there's a DCI report that I'm just not remembering because they did canvass. I think they talked to all of them now that I'm thinking about it. I'll see what I can find.
Okay, and
Yep.
who? Okay, I had a brain lapse. I was gonna say the F word, but where does Groel work?
In Redon's Quarry, Groel. In Redon's Quarry, near the.
So somebody knows that area, and somebody has access to that area, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
There was a question by Mark Katz.
Yep. Correct.
It says,
And
Dr. Silkman. Oh, go ahead.
You got to know your way around. If you're going to enter and exit the quarries, you have to know where you're going because these places are massive. Duke, did you have a comment? Thank you, Lee.
I think it's important to at least note that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that several of Redon's workers throughout this investigation were allowed to come in and out of that property area to conduct business or whatever, but they were allowed in.
Correct.
Did they also sign in?
Yes, there were login and log out sheets. I believe so, because they actually they put in brackets worker, Redont, so the workers were allowed in and out. They did take a record, correct. Jack 61.
This may have nothing to do with anything, but there were, if you guys remember from the dispatch calls that we listened to, actually not that long ago, they blocked off, or they did block off because County Highway Q and was it Old Y over here? I think it was. County Q. Yep, they blocked it off, and I guess they had various offers at those posts for days, letting people in and out, and so we're way over here the hell away from the Avery salvage yard,
Yes. Yeah, because the important point is here, guys, and you can see the answers right in front of you. There was a lot of activity outside of the Avery salvage yard. That's the important point. There was a lot of activity occurring in Redon's Quarry, but a lot of activity occurring at Cuss Road and also in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, which is very, very interesting. So if we take the wind as blowing from the west northwest, there's no way that Groel can smell anything coming from Stephen Avery's burn pit, burn barrel, or even the Yonder burn barrels. The wind is blowing in the opposite direction. It's going downwind from him, which is very interesting. So the true wind directions, according to meteorological standards, the wind is inconsistent with Groel's statement, which is incredible when you think about it. Neverly, do you have a comment?
I did, but I forgot. However, Mark Cass had a question for you. He said, Dr. Silkman, if the wind is flowing away from you, in other words, upwind, what is the distance where you will smell it or not?
That I don't know, because it's all dependent on the geography. It depends on elevation. It depends on what's there. Is it raining? Trees, the presence of trees. So there are many factors that can affect it. But what is disturbing is the mere factor that Groel smelt something he had never smelt before. Either he's lying, or he made it up, or he's getting confused, or if he did smell something, it's not coming from the Avery salvage yard, which now points away from the Avery salvage yard, it points to another location. Because remember, did anyone, and I asked this to the panel and in chat, did anyone smell anything foul on the Avery salvage yard at any time? Anyone?
Nope. And that somebody would have said that. If not the Avery and Dassey's, it would be neighbors. It would be customers. Somebody would have said something. That's actually a big trigger for some of us on the panel because there was no such thing. There's a question.
Right.
Nan's Live
Correct.
7, hello, sweetie, the artist. She said, has it been determined how many acres Redund Quarry is? Based on this map, the Savory yard, salvage yard is 40 acres parcel. The quarry is approximately 200 acres.
It's several hundred acres.
Yes.
It is several
I
hundred
think
acres.
that you actually gave us a number before, and I think that it was over 200 acres, and the Manitowoc is approximately 80. Yes.
Yep. Correct. I remember there was a telephone call, a call in which they were talking about over 500 acres were being searched. So it's a massive area. But guys, if what Groel is saying is true, that he did smell something he had never smelled before, that means he was very close to where a cremation event was taking place. Duke.
I think it's also just going back to your point about did anyone smell anything that was on the property that night. I think it's important to remember that Barb, and I can't pinpoint in my head when she says this, but she does talk about how when Stephen did burn tires in his burn pit, her house would reek.
That's correct.
And it's interesting to look at that. Okay, so her house is east of Stephen's. So
correct.
And relatively close. So if her house is going to reek when he burns tires, the claim is that tires helped with the flame that, part of Stephen's fire on the 31st.
Yep.
Even if you take away the fact that somehow no one smelled the burning body, she should have smelled the tires then because she knows exactly what that's like.
That's correct. And Barb used to state, I don't know if Barb's in chat or not, she used to state that when Stephen burnt a lot of tires, there would be soot on her house. And there was no evidence of any soot at all. And when you think about it, that's the highest concentration of smell of a burning body right there. And no one, Scott Tadich, Barb, people coming in and out of Barb's property, not one of them reported a foul smell. Yet Groel, who's a long distance away, said he smelt something he had never smelt before. I don't recall. Sorry, Cherie.
I just wondered if didn't he also smell or allegedly smell something, but then he later said that it wasn't true, that the police must have written their own narrative.
You mean Josh Redont?
No,
Mr. Metz. It was Mr. Metz, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was an electrical smell, but he's I'm not exactly sure where his location was, but he said there was an electrical type of smell. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yes, there was controversy to his what he said. They were trying to make him change his statement.
I just wondered if it was the same cop that wrote Metz's statement that wrote Groel's, because I don't know who wrote Metz's.
Right. Yeah, that'll be interesting to check out. Sorry, Neville, just one second. Alice, do you have a comment? Alice.
Well, this just makes me so friggin' angry. You've got to think it this way on Doc, right? Nobody reported, no neighbours, no anybody else in the family, like Neverly says, no customers or anything like that reported anything foul smelling, right? Now,
correct.
If you think about it, if you go out with a drink or for dinner or whatever with your family or whatever, and you're outside and there's people on each side of you smoking fags, you know what I mean, and you go home and it's a non-smoker that you go on to, they're like, are you smoking? Because they can smell the cigarette smoke off of you, you know,
Correct.
and that's just where in noses, you know. So what they're trying to say is not only is Stephen a genius at cleaning up forensics and blood and everything like that, but he's also a genius at masking smells of a burning body that is one of the most impossible smells
and you can change the
to get
direction of the wind.
Because it would reek, everything would reek, Doc. If Brendan was at that fire and there was a burning body in there and he went home, Barb would have smelt it. You smell the smoke in your own clothes when you've been with a bonfire. You know what I mean? Your clothes reek it, you know. So
Correct.
not one of them mentioned anything about a foul smell or anything like that, or Brendan stinking. Not even Scott saying that Brendan was stinking.
I've been waiting for that to say that, Alice, this whole time. Exactly. Scott Tadich, who was a willing participant to embellish his story and what he saw and what he didn't. You know, the fire that grew and grew and became a whopping fire. I think in this whole stressful situation of setting up Steve and, you know, pulling Brendan down the shithole with him, they omitted to think about one important fact, and that was the lack of smell. For somebody to claim that the body was burned in the freaking open fire pit, which is ridiculous to begin with, and nobody ever mentions any foul smell, that was a big to do, actually. That's, I think, was their downfall. Because from the beginning, we mentioned that. And if Scott didn't want to say something like that or didn't think of it, I call bullshit on the whole thing.
Right. Well, the only person who mentioned the foul smell is Groel. Right. And the only problem with Groel's statement is that he's upwind, not downwind. So there's nothing coming from Stephen Avery's or the Avery salvage yard that's going to waft across for Groel to smell. So if Groel is actually telling the truth, if there was a cremation event, it's actually much closer to Groel and is coming upwind from him, which is very, very interesting. Alice, did you have a comment?
No, Doc, that was it.
Okay.
Katie did it had a question. I'm so sorry. Katie did it. Hello, Katie.
Yep. Katie?
She said, I wonder if Groel and law enforcement have any connection. You know what? At this point, we don't know if they have the connection. At least I don't. However, the more we talk about it, the more he is actually smelling a little bit foul, in my opinion.
Oh, correct. And what concerns me is that the person who wrote the report is Sturdivant, who was at the burn pit, sifting it. Duke, do you have a comment?
Well, I'm gonna just I'll just very briefly say something about a connection because this is something that I've been really looking deep into. And I want to give, and I think anyone who has any questions about that sort of connection needs to talk to Sherry Lynn. She's done some unbelievable research, and there actually is a connection between Redant and some pretty big players in Manitowoc, one of them being Tom Kasurek. So I think I'm not really ready to say more about it yet, but just know that that's something I'm really looking into, and if anyone else wants to explore it, Sherry Lynn is someone I've been using to gain a lot of insight into that.
Yes. Her genealogy work is top shelf. It's just amazing the connections that Sherry Lynn finds. Look, the Redon family goes back a long, long time, a long time away, and there are many connections all over the place, and all sorts of rumors going on. But Jack 61, what have you got up there?
Yeah, as you guys have been talking, as promised, I did just do a quick search of the DCI documents, and I can't find anything specific to these two that, or at least these three that are really mentioned in Sturdivant's report. But, and this is only a header page. There's nothing else connected with it. But I'm going to say I'm 99% sure this is from Sturdivant. You can see his name there. Josh Redaunt handed off to Sturdivant a number of names that were of people that worked at Redaunt & Sons. Now,
In the property.
yeah, as like I said, you can see here, it's only one, just the header. It ends right there. So, but I think there's another, I mentioned in another report about this, but I can't find these guys' names specifically being interviewed, but I'll continue to dig. I just wanted to throw this up. This is report, there it is, 116, right there.
Yep. Very interesting. Correct. And Josh Redaunt, he was in and out of the property as well. They allowed him to come in and out. That's very, very interesting. So the question is, the wind directions don't fit. The wind directions, as they are officially, meant that whatever Stephen was burning that night, if anything was burning, the smell would have gone away from Groel. So that now makes it very interesting because the wind directions are inconsistent with Groel's statement. So the question is, did Groel actually make the report up? Did he actually smell something he's never smelled before? Did Sturdivant change the words? Or was simply Groel confused about the direction of the wind? That seems rather bizarre because he said that the wind was coming from the salvage yard towards him. That clearly cannot be the case, right? So very, very interesting. Does anyone have any comments so far? So I think we've debunked another important point about the direction of the wind. And I didn't know at the time, but Jack 61, are we able to look at the next slide, please? So at the same time, Robert Fabian made a very interesting statement. Alice, do you see the slide up on the screen? Do you see it?
I sure do, Doc.
Can you read just 186? So this is Kathleen Zellner talking about Robert Fabian. Let's go for it.
Okay. The state's only witness used to establish that Mr. Avery burned Mrs. Hallback's electronic devices in his burn barrel on October 31st at dusk was Mr. Fabian. A series of experiments conducted by the current Post-Conviction Council's investigator has established that Mr. Fabian committed perjury when he testified about smelling burnt plastic emanating from Mr. Avery's burn barrel. Trial Defence Counsel failed to rebut Mr. Fabian's very incriminating testimony about seeing thick smoke and smelling burning plastic, either by doing their own experiments to disprove his statements.
All right. Now, so remember the very first slide that I put up talking about potential sources of smoke and smell? Well, Robert Fabian made a very incriminating statement against Stephen Avery regarding seeing thick black smoke coming from the burn barrel that had eventually CIDES found the burnt electronics, right? Which is amazing. Andy B, do you see the slide? Do you see it?
I do, Doc.
Can you read 187, please?
Yeah, no problem. At trial, Mr. Fabian testified that on October 31st, 2005, he and Earl were driving a golf cart in the vicinity of Mr. Avery's trailer at around 5:20 p.m. According to Mr. Fabian, Mr. Avery's burn barrel was burning at that time. Mr. Fabian described heavy smoke and a distinct odour of burning plastic emanating from Mr. Avery's burn barrel. On October 31st, 2005, at 5:20 p.m, the wind was blowing at approximately 5 miles per hour from the northwest. Midwest Regional Climate Centre weather report attached and incorporated herein, Exhibit 39.
Now, notice what Kathleen Zellner just did. She did exactly what we just did with Groel. And notice the direction of the wind from the northwest. Guys, what do you think? Her statement is exactly consistent with scenario B. From the northwest. We debunked Groel in that he couldn't have smelled anything coming from Stephen Avery's burn pit because the wind was blowing away from him. Kathleen Zellner debunked Robert Fabian by saying, you couldn't have smelt smoke. The smoke couldn't have been coming in your direction because the wind was coming from the northwest. So guys, can you see that this proves that this is consistent with Groel's scenario B, the wind blowing away from him, not towards him. Do we have any comments? Jack 61.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with that.
Right? So if we have a look at the next slide. Now, Robert Fabian, this is slide A9. Robert Fabian got caught up in court, right? Jack 61, do you see the slide? You're muted. Do you see the slide?
Yeah.
I
could get the mouse on the damn unmute button. Yeah, I see it.
Can you read the question in both the Kratz part and the Strang part? And Neverly, can you read out the answer in both parts?
Sure.
Can you see it?
I'll try. I'll try.
This is Kratz.
That's creepy already.
I know. This is Kratz questioning Fabian. Let's go for it, guys.
I'll do my best high voice that I can. Tell the jury what you remember about that burn barrel at about 5:20 p.m. on the 31st of October.
When me and Earl had pulled up on the golf cart, we had stopped in between the house and the garage, and the smoke from the burn barrel was blowing right in my face. So I told Earl to move ahead.
Okay.
From Strang.
This is Strang.
Yep. You certainly saw no larger fire going on in a burn barrel or burn area.
No, I did not.
Didn't hear any screaming.
No, I did not.
Didn't hear any gunshots coming from that area.
No, I did not.
All right. Now, guys, can you see how important this testimony is? Because Robert Fabian and also Earl, they rolled up in the golf cart between the garage and Stephen Avery's residence. Well, guess what was behind them? Stephen Avery's burn pit.
That's right.
Did any one of them say, yeah, we smelt a human body being cremated?
Nope.
Anyone?
Or somebody shooed us away, or, you know what I mean?
Or
Stephen
fire,
acted strangely. Yeah.
With flames as high as the garage. Bullshit.
High as the garage. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Duke.
Were they driving the golf cart that the dogs hit on?
Yes, they did. There was a hit on the golf cart. So
he put himself in that golf cart.
Yes, and both of them had rifles, and both of them had .22 rifles with them. So isn't that very interesting, right? So the important point is this. If you have a look at where the burn barrel is, right up on the top, the wind was blowing away from Robert Fabian. So hence, how in the hell can thick black smoke go into the face of Robert Fabian where the wind was blowing away from him? But have a look at the burn pit. Have a look at the burn pit. Anything burning in the burn pit is going away from Robert Fabian and away from where Groel was, pointing west. So guys, there's something weird going on. Robert Fabian is right next to the burn pit in the same vicinity. He never reports a foul odor. He doesn't hear any commotion at all. He never even reports a large whopping fire going on. And yet, Groel, at about what, 5:30, 6 o'clock, same type of area, he smells a foul odor. Guys, doesn't this now exculpate Stephen? Doesn't this exculpate him? How in the hell can he possibly be burning Teresa Halbach when you've got Robert Fabian in the same vicinity as the burn pit, never hears a thing, never sees a thing, never reports a smell, never talks about an aggressive dog, nothing. And yet Groel, who's a long distance away, smells something he has never smelt before. Guys, this is powerful testimony. Two things. He's bullshitting about the black smoke hitting him in the face. It's impossible because the smoke is burning. If there was smoke, it's going away from the burn pit. So is it possible that the only smoke he saw or smelt was coming from the burn pit as he was driving up with the golf cart rather than smoke from the burn barrel? Neverly.
I don't know about that, but this is what I wanted to say. All the people on the salvage yard that they interviewed, that they were there at one point or another on that day. The event that the state is narrating that took place to this poor woman is a memorable, significant event. PTSD Correct. Producing. So this is like long-term trauma that all of them would have succumbed to. Because to see a human body burning, oh my God, look what we're talking about. A human body burning in an open burn area. That everybody would have remembered that. Everybody.
100%.
We have,
but don't,
and we're talking about a wolf coming into Fabian's face, just like a little smoke or whatever. And he said, oh, let's just move from there. Nothing
Correct.
more than that.
Correct.
Nothing more than that. So,
But let me tell you this. Sorry, Neverly. Kathleen Zellner's experts tried to reproduce the fire from not the burn pit, but the fire from the burn barrel. And they had electronics burning. There was no smell of plastic. There was no thick black smoke, right? And remember what Siders did when he pulled out the rim of the tire? You would have smelled smoke coming from the rubber tire. That's not the case, right? So Kathleen Zellner, through the use of the direction of the wind, was able to debunk Robert Fabian. But Robert Fabian even said that there was nothing coming from the burn pit. He was right next to the burn pit. Jack 61.
Yeah, I want everybody to really kind of think about and remember there was no real angst about any fire until about, I think about the 9th or the 10th of November, maybe. I'm sure it was in that time frame. Now, there were some conversations between Barb and Stephen, and Stephen said that the fire happened like a week before any significant fire, I guess, that he really remembered. But there was a call on October 30th, and I don't remember if I think it may have been Jody and Stephen talking about Brendan coming over and helping him clean up. That was on the 30th.
Correct.
I personally believe that fire happened on the 28th or the 30th. That's what I can't really say for sure, but I think that's when the fire was. Can't prove that, obviously.
Well, if we look at the sum part of everything, there's no evidence at all that Teresa Halbach was cremated in that burn pit. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Absolutely.
And Robert Fabian, who was right there, never smelled anything going on, never saw any large fire. There was no thick black smoke of rubber, nothing whatsoever. Everything we've just talked about is consistent. If a cremation event occurred, It was not in the burn pit. It was not in the burn barrel. It was somewhere else. Growell was closer to County Highway Q. At County Highway Q, what do we have? We have the Manitowoc County Gravel Pit. What do we have at the Manitowoc County Gravel Pit? Sergeant Jason Jost with 4 cadaver dogs, and we have a dog hit by Brutus at a burn area, scratching, barking, and further down from there, we've got the 3 debris piles where they found bones. Is anyone getting slightly suspicious? Jack 61.
Well, just think about, this is another weird one that I really can't explain, but Scott Taddick was interviewed by the DCI. His first report, he doesn't mention anything about a fire when he came to pick Barb up. Not a word.
That's
nothing.
Correct.
And then
That's
19 days later, then things begin because they're already working on the fire aspect. It gets brought up to him. Well, didn't Barb say that, you guys saw a fire with flames and anyway.
And the fire got bigger. Duke.
There's a few people in this case that are that were asked to lie during the trial. Some of them were better than others. I would say that Taddick is right up there with Ham of God and Colburn for poor acting on the stand.
Yeah, but I think I agree. I think Scott Taddick was under a lot of pressure as well. Because remember, he had to give the reciprocal alibi for Bobby Dassey, and Bobby Dassey had to give an alibi for Scott Taddick. So potentially, they could have you scratch my back, I scratch yours, because on the stand, he was questioned. Wait a minute, didn't you initially say the fire was only a couple of feet? Oh yeah, then how come all of a sudden it grew to the height of the garage, which made no sense at all? Duke.
Yeah, it just begs the question of how did they get him to change and why?
Yes.
From not mentioning a fire to saying that the fire was the most memorable thing of that night. It takes something to get from point A to point B there, and it's very interesting to think of what that might be.
Well, correct. Sorry, Jack 61.
Duke is right. We have to look at the end result and question what happened between point A and point B to get him to modify his statement from November 10th, 2005. It's a complete 180. I'm sorry, it is. No matter. And I personally think, like you said, he was pressured. Go ahead, Neverly.
Yep,
well,
correct.
Who's to say they didn't approach him just like they did approach Bobby, and jamming up theory? You know what I mean?
I agree.
It's either Stephen or you. And what Barbie has been saying for a while now, they told her it's either your brother or your son, or what did she say, or the property or something like that. And also, let's not forget all the speculations and theories that have been going from the beginning when Scott Taddick landed on that fabulous property with like 600-700 feet of riverfront. And his, I think that he got expunged. His, what do you call it? Not warrants, but whatever. He had like criminally on the record that was gone, and also his death was gone as well. Speculation only. I'm just saying that people have been looking into that as well, that he actually scored, because the house was $200,000 at the time. How much was he making in 2005 working in the foundry?
Yep, correct. And we've seen and read the report by Deidring, right? And we also heard the interview that they did with Bobby Dassey, where they were coming up with all this crap saying, we're law enforcement officers, we're never going to set your uncle up, blah, blah, blah. And you think to yourself, wait a minute, your whole job was to take a Bobby Dassey to the hospital to get a blood test and take some photographs, right? To take a DNA sample. So I think there would have been a lot of pressure both on Bobby Dassey and also on Scott Taddick, because Scott Taddick's early reports don't mention a fire. Then all of a sudden the fire got really, really big. You must understand, guys, The state are banking that the Stephen Avery's burn pit is the primary site of cremation. That's what they're backing their whole case on. But all the anecdotal evidence that we have brought up points away from the burn pit as being the primary site of cremation. The burn pit appears to be a site of bone dumping, not a site of cremation. The fact that Growell could smell something he's never smelled before couldn't have come from the Avery salvage yard because the wind was going in the opposite direction, right? There's no way it's going now all the way from the salvage yard back to where Growell is. But if Growell is telling the truth, he's now giving a hint that the source of cremation was closer to him, right? And what do we find? We find Sergeant Jason Jost. We find dog handlers all around that area, including giving GPS coordinates. Right, guys? So something is happening off the Avery salvage yard, not on it. Right? So isn't it interesting that it was Sergeant Jason Jost who finds the first bone fragment on the Avery salvage yard on November the 8th, and who happens to be there at the same time? Sturdivant, Mignon, Strauss. Wow, it's rather remarkable. Guys, do we have any comments so far?
And did any of them report any foul smell themselves? No, they didn't. I'm telling you guys, this was something that they dropped the ball on, and it shows now. It's unraveling their whole theory.
Correct. Duke.
Well, that's a great point, and I just think it, just to give everyone a visual here, Sturdivant, what he tells us is that he walks up to the burn pit, he bends down with the twig, and he kind of stirs the pit a little, so his nose is almost directly in it, and he doesn't
correct. Correct. Which means that the combustion source is gone, right? Which means that it can't be the primary site of human combustion, because you would have had all the pyrolysis material, you would have had the burning of intestines, bowel, urine, blood, fat, hair, all in that spot, and nobody reports a damn thing, right, guys? Duke.
And it just goes, well, we've said it a million times, Doc, you've said it so many times, but you can't say it enough. And I apologize for my language. This will be the first time I think I cuss on here. But Brutus would have gone fucking nuts.
Oh, correct. Correct. And of course, we're going to be talking soon, and you're going to be talking soon about that infamous item BZ, right? Which, once you see it, it's going to destroy the case. It's going to blow the case to pieces. Andy B. Sorry, guys. Andy B.
Oh, hi, Doc. I was just wanted to double check on the screen at the moment. The Stevens burn barrel is at the top end of the yellow arrow.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wanting to double check. Because it's hard to orientate where it was. Like I thought it might have been on the left of those trees. So possibly the smoke might have been going, like from the northwest there. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And that's Kathleen Zellner who did that work. And isn't it interesting that Kathleen Zellner used the direction of the smoke to debunk Robert Fabian, which is exactly what we just did with Growell. So, you can't have two different people saying that the wind came from the northwest. It's consistent with what you get in a meteorological report. So we are 100% correct. The wind was blowing away from Growell. Jack 61.
To add to Duke's statement about Sturdivant, his nose would have been right in it. Remember, 2 days prior, Reese was photographing, and he was standing right beside the burn pit.
That's correct. And to make matters, matters worse,
it does make matters much worse, because that's 2 days sooner that of any kind of remains would have been there, he would have smelled it.
That's correct. That's correct. And if you notice on the night of November the 5th, when Julie Kramer was there, Julie Kramer never reports a smell. And that's on November the 5th, even before the photographer shows up, Trooper Reese. So no one is reporting a foul odor. Now, you notice that none of the investigators are going towards the burn pit at all, because the burn pit is not a site of interest. Kratz had to sell the story in the court to say, hey, no one could get next to the burn pit because of a vicious bear, right? Because the bear, the dog, the Alsatian dog. And yet with Duke's brilliant finding of Bucket Man, you've got a law enforcement officer directly in front of Bear feeding him on November the 6th, the very same day that Kucharski said, oh, me and Remeka wanted to check the burn pit, but we couldn't because of a vicious dog and I had to pull my revolver on him. It's bullshit. But I think we've got some vital clues coming from the Manitowoc County gravel pit, right? So guys, are there any questions or comments so far? Are we all good? All right. Jack 61.
I think we're all good and we're on the same page over here.
Awesome. Awesome. If we have a look at slide A10, now there's some bizarre events occurring on November the 10th, right? Duke, do you see the slide? I just see if Duke's
yeah, Doc, I do. I'm just moving from one place to another right now, so I might not be able to read.
All right. I'll get someone else to read it. Dark Side of the Moon. Do you see the slide?
Yeah.
Can you read what's in blue on the right-hand side? Just those comments. So this is a report written on November the 10th. Let's go for it.
Right. November the 10th, 2005, a charred human foot in the quarry south of the Avery Road. And then a human vertebrae in the water. Something that resembled a human foot that was charred. Special Agent Fassbender. Sorry.
Yeah, keep going.
Special Agent Fassbender, Investigator Wiegert, Sheriff Pagel, Medical Examiner Glazer, Correctional Officer Conan, and then a rag with a brownish-red coloured stain on it, fresh blood in the gravel. Very odd that this could possibly be blood from the case. I did wish to collect the blood for evidentiary purposes.
Now, guys, this is thank you so much, Dark Side of the Moon. This is a quarry south of the Avery Salvage Yard. What quarry do you know is south of the Avery Salvage Yard? Do you want Jack 61? You want to put up that slide again, showing the orientation of the properties? I think it's you can even put up slide A7 if you wish. So this is a report written on November the 10th. The quarry that's south of the Avery Salvage Yard is the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Right? Do you see it? South? It's the Manitowoc County gravel pit.
Absolutely.
And yep. And if we go back to that report, Jack 61, A10, have a look at the heavies that are at the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Fassbender, Wiegert, Pagel, the medical examiner Glazer, and for some unknown reason, a correctional officer Conan. Would anyone like to comment what all these heavyweights are doing in the Manitowoc County gravel pit? Alice, I'd like to hear your point.
Sorry, Doc, I missed that question. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, have a look at who's in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Fassbender, Wiegert, Pagel, the medical examiner Glazer, and a correctional officer Conan. What are they doing in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, guys?
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck are they all doing there? All of the main suspects in this whole case for it gone tits up is all in that gravel pit. Why, if there's nothing there? You know, it doesn't make sense. It does not make fucking sense. But a quick question Hugh Fraser had, which we missed, but TJ has managed to repost. So thanks, TJ, for that. He says, how close are we to having a probable perjury case against a sworn law enforcement officer? Presumably, there's no immunity for perjury. Any precedent for a civil action?
Well, this is the whole idea. That's an excellent question. That's the whole idea of Kathleen Zellner getting in front of a judge, because Kathleen Zellner will present her scenario of what took place. And in actual fact, we're going to be discussing this in an upcoming few slides, because the state's narrative is demonstratively false. It cannot be. We've shown time and time again that no burning of a human being occurred in Stephen Avery's burn pit. It couldn't have. What Groel smelt must have come from a different area. And lo and behold, we've got the heavyweights in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. And if you remember from last week's episode, what did Redont say? He said that a few days after he had observed the whole Manitowoc County gravel pit flood lit, they were there. And I think later on, Jack 61, if you've got that famous Pagel phone call,
I do.
We'll play it. Play it. Jack 61, do you have any comments about what we've read so far?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've taken. I couldn't do it in PowerPoint, but I did in photos. I blew up A10, and if you just read this, it's really interesting what he says. I'm not going to read all of it. Number one, Claser was over here in at the Corey Manitowoc County gravel pit, and at basically the same time, he pronounced Teresa dead. But if you read this report here at the bottom, he says,
yes,
Correctional Officer Todd Conan arrived at the scene and stated he would stand by the object while I went to get a camera and evidence bag.
Yeah,
I don't remember seeing any photos from Tyson.
No,
this is Tyson's report.
No,
and then
correct.
I'm certainly not going to read all of this, but you can see here where he says Claser basically said he confirmed that he did believe it was blood. I informed medical examiner Claser had some concerns due to the fact that we did have a substantial amount of rain within the past couple of days, and it felt very odd that this could possibly be blood from the case we were working on. Holy shit!
Correct. But guys, they've given the game away. They've given the game away. Teresa Horbach was meant to have never left the property, nor her RAV4.
That's right.
All this anecdotal evidence is pointing away from the Avery salvage yard. How on God's earth can you have Sergeant Jason Jost with 4 dog handlers in the Manitowoc County gravel pit? How can you have Brutus giving a hit in the Manitowoc County gravel pit next to some concrete slabs and a burnt area, which we'll be discussing? How on earth can you have investigators finding 3 debris piles in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, finding human bones, right? And how can you have Fassbender, Wiegert, the sheriff himself, and the medical examiner and a correctional officer all in the Manitowoc County gravel pit? And damning as all hell, they find blood on the ground.
And
blood on the ground. Neverly.
What you said, what he said. And then you have Kratz, who chooses to say in the court that he's going to spend no more than 20 seconds on that area and what was found over there, right? So with all of this, we have a freaking medical examiner, Claser, who didn't come to the salvage yard where the burn pit was, where they claimed that Teresa was killed and cremated, for God's sake.
Correct.
Yet he goes to over there and he pronounces her dead over there.
Correct, which we'll be talking about in a second.
Something's rotten in the state of Wisconsin.
There's something really weird happening on November the 10th. Andy B.
Yes, Doc. Jack, could you just blow that up again? Don't we mention taking swabs, cotton swabs of the blood?
Yep, give me just a second. Yep, he did say that. He took a control, and it says it here. Hold on.
Yeah. I wonder if there's any follow up to that in the evidence.
Oh yes, there is. Yeah. Oh yes, there is.
Okay.
Oh yes. Don't worry, there is. This is going to blow your mind. This is going to blow your mind. So remember, right? These guys are obviously in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, and they find all these things. It just so happened that charred foot happened to be burnt insulation. So they said, no, it's not a foot. But they're finding human vertebrae in water. They're finding blood. They're finding all sorts of stuff, right? Now, Jack 61, are we able to look at the next slide, please? So they collected the blood, right? They collected the blood and they did also a control swab. Now, think about this. This is blood, obviously, on a rock or on the ground. Cherie Culhane, this is slide A11. I'll just wait a sec, Jack.
I'm sorry. I was blowing this up for Andy. He wanted to read something here. I apologize.
Yes, Andy, you want to read something?
This part here, Andy, I did photograph the area of blood and did apply 2 drops of distilled water to a sterilized cotton swab and did swab the blood stain. The stain was collected at 1716 and 1718. I did a control swab of the gravel in the vicinity of possible blood.
Yeah, that was all. Well done, Jack. I just wanted to double check what I read. That was all. That was all.
Yep.
And
so
Doc's going to tell us what happened to them now.
Yeah. So think about this, right? This blood sample has been in the elements likely for days. And they're going, no, this blood can't possibly be involved in this case, yada, yada, yada. Well, it just so happened that the blood sample turned out to give a full, robust genomic DNA profile that was a male. And Cherie Culhane compared CX, its item CX, which was blood in the quarry. It didn't belong to Stephen Avery, Brian Dassey, Alan Avery, Brendan Dassey, Bobby Dassey, Earl Avery, and Chuck Avery. It didn't belong to them. So item CX, which was blood in the quarry, in the same general area where they found where Brutus hit, in the same general area where they found 3 debris piles containing bones, they found an unknown blood sample belonging to a male. It wasn't an Avery. It wasn't a Dassey. And do you think Culhane ran it through CODIS? No. We got no idea who CX belongs to at Jack 61.
Yeah, that's the really irritating part, that they would not run this through CODIS. I mean, I know even in 2005, the database had grown significantly at that point in time.
Correct. So imagine now if they could run CX through the database or check other potential suspects, right? Because someone had obviously shed their blood very close to the Manitowoc County gravel pit, and it's a male, and it's not an Avery, it's not a Dassey. Now, here's the ultimate question. How come Culhane was able to get a robust DNA sample from blood that's been sitting out in the elements, yet only got a partial profile for A23, which is a blood on the back door of the RAV? Can anyone answer that question? Anyone? Neverly.
I cannot answer that question, Dr. Silkman, but I do have another question. So if you want to finish this, what you're asking, I can come back to mine.
Yeah, I can't understand it. why Culhane A never ran CX through CODIS. 2, get DNA from other potential suspects to either rule them in or rule them out. You know, like a Ryan Hilligus for a start, or law enforcement officers, just check, get them out of the equation. None of that was done. And why didn't Culhane re-extract A23? No idea. Now, Neverly.
So here's my question, kind of relates to what you just asked. So, okay, let's start from the beginning. Where was the item CX found?
Very close to the, according to what Kathleen Zellner said, very close to the Manitowoc County gravel pit.
Okay.
In the quarry.
In the quarry. Wouldn't it
Correct.
be reasonable to ask, or is it possible, or is it unreasonable to ask everybody who has access to that quarry, like the workers, to submit their DNA test?
Correct. Which is very interesting, right? So there was a lot of activity in Redon's quarry. I don't believe they took a DNA swab of anybody in the quarry.
Right?
Is anyone surprised by that?
Well, yes and no. You know what I mean?
Yes. Wait a sec, Neverly. Alice, do you have a comment? Do you think they should have swabbed all the workers?
Yes. Yes, they should have swabbed everybody that was in the vicinity of the Avery salvage yard on the 31st, just for elimination purposes. You know, like they should have looked into other people better
Correct.
than what they actually did. You know, Ryan Hilligus should have been looked into more than what they did. Blowdorn should have been looked into more than what they did. Quite a few people should have been looked into more than what they did. But JD has got a couple of questions in chat.
Yes.
He's on about CX. He's asking, can it be run? In other words, I think, can it be retested?
Yes.
And
Yes.
The other
doesn't have to be retested. It doesn't have to be retested. They've got a full profile. All it needs to be done is placed in CODIS. See if there's a match.
Right, and that's his next one. He's asking, could it be a Tadic?
We don't know. We do not know. We know it's a male. And I remember there was a case in England or Scotland a long time ago in which I think a young girl was murdered, and they tested every person in the county. Do you remember that case? And they caught him.
Yeah.
Right. They had to test thousands and thousands of DNA samples, right, that were in the county. How come here in this case, none of the workers in the Manitowoc County gravel pit or in Redon's quarry were ever tested or potential suspects? If you're finding all this activity occurring in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, which is close to Redon's quarry, don't you think you want to test them just to clear them? It never happened. You know why? Because of freaking tunnel vision on Stephen Avery, right, Alice?
Yeah, exactly, Doc. That's exactly what it was. Because that exact same scenario happened in Luke's case. They stopped a door away from Stephen Faulkner's house, the man whose fresh semen was found in the condom, when they were doing their search, their door-to-door searches. They stopped a door away from the suspect who was the fresh semen was in the condom, and didn't find that out until 3 years later, until he was done for another crime, and then his DNA got put into the system and it matched up with us, and that's the only reason why he got found. So if they'd have done their job back in 2003 with Luke, they would have came across this sooner if they took DNA and things like that from the males around the vicinity, especially when it was coming back with none of Luke's DNA. You know what I mean? They should have done exactly the same with every male person that worked on the Manitowoc gravel pit, the deer camp, the Redon quarry,
Mm-hmm.
Even the house on Cush Road, you know, the wee ones that are secluded, any males that was in there, they should have tested all of them. But they just didn't, because they had tunnel vision on one person, and that
Targeting
one person
Stephen,
was
yeah.
And why? Because they needed to get rid of this fucking lawsuit that was going to bankrupt the state, and there was no way they were giving somebody like Stephen Avery and his family £36 million. Then he would have been richer than some of the ones that actually lived in the town and looked down their nose at the Avery family. And they couldn't have that, Doc. They just couldn't.
100% correct. But that's why the state will argue this. And this is why we always get down to this point. Their argument will be, why would we have to test potentially 100 or 200 males when Stephen's blood was in the RAV4? That's their de facto argument, right? And that's why we get down to the same point. It was crucial to set Stephen up by placing his DNA in the RAV4. That forgave a lot of sins by the investigators by saying, shit, we didn't do a proper job. Or, my God, what's all this stuff happening outside the Avery salvage yard? Oh, but we're okay. We found Stephen's DNA in the RAV4, hence we don't have to do any additional work or investigation. Jack 61. Thank you, Alice. Jack 61.
Yeah, just for visual purposes, I like visual. I think everybody does. I pulled up the excellent interactive map of yours. He spent he did a lot of work on this. It's fantastic.
Brilliant map.
It really is. But he's put together, I don't know that, I'm looking for item CX, but I can't find it. But it doesn't really matter. It's down here somewhere where they found item CX. I know it is.
It's in the quarry.
Yeah, and I'm a little surprised that Tyson didn't include, or maybe he did somewhere else, the GPS coordinates. I don't know necessarily that Calumet were really good about recording GPS. Some of the other officers were really good about it. But anyway, I just wanted to give a visual. Let me blow this back here, then I'll turn it off. Up here is the Avery salvage yard, right? Up here to the right.
Correct.
And you can see the rows and so forth and so on. Anyway, so all this is down here. They're finding all this shit down here in this quarry area, the Manitowoc County gravel pit. I mean, come on, guys.
Correct.
And they're showing they're showing high interest in this area. Not some heavy hitters, as Doc said. Anyway.
Correct. When you've got both investigators there, when you've got the sheriff down there, when you've got the medical examiner down there, you know there's some heavy shit going on right down there. And how did Kratz approach this? I'm spending 20 seconds on it.
Yeah.
Then it's not evidence at all. Whereas quite clearly there's something. I mean, people can argue about Cuss Road. People can argue, well, maybe it was a diversion, maybe it never happened, maybe it was just a peat moss bag, yada yada. You cannot dispel the Manitowoc County gravel pit because you have hard-bound forensic evidence in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Jack 61.
Absolutely. There's too much off of the Avery property. There's far too much. And that's one of the reasons we're here. It's one of the interests, because if Teresa never left the property or her car, what the fuck are we doing?
None of this should be here.
Exactly.
None of this should be here.
No.
Right?
I was just going to say that.
Yep. And the argument is, right, Neverly, right, guys? Somebody might say, maybe it was another female victim. Well, guess what? The state never investigated if it was another female victim.
Yeah, and
they
got another big problem if it's not Teresa.
And they could always say it's not relevant to Teresa. But what the hell?
That's correct.
As Jack said, what the hell were they doing over there? And we heard it on all these phone calls. They're expanding the search by 2 miles, not 200 feet, 2 miles. and having
Correct.
over 200 officers from different
Correct.
counties. And I mean, there's this guy, Cannon, or who is this correctional officer, Cannon? He just stood there, basically. But in other words, they were gathering people, and we listened to endless calls of, what's his name, looking for people who are going to work overtime, 4 a.m. to
Correct.
4 p.m. So
Oh,
they
that was
needed
correct.
people. So why
Lieutenant
in
Syme.
the world, Symes, yeah, why in the world were they expanding their search if she never left the freaking property? And again, I'm gonna pound this one home. Sorry, guys. Why did they chase away Deborah Cackett from the salvage yard, threaten her with an
Right.
arrest? And why did they call this Cleaser guy to the Manitoba
Yeah.
County, who pronounced
Yeah.
her dead there on the spot? There was no question.
Correct. Correct. 100% correct.
So
But
she never left the property. Bullshit.
yet they're finding all this
Garbage.
stuff.
Say it, Dr. Silkman. Garbage.
It's garbage, right? But so we have CX. We know it's a male profile. It's a robust profile. It's a full profile. It's not an Avery. It's not a Dassey. They don't know who it belongs to. It's as simple as that. And I don't even know whether they ran it through CODIS to determine whether it's someone with a criminal record. They have got no idea. So we have an unknown male DNA sample in the quarry. We don't know who it belongs to, right?
Well,
Now,
Duke
in the middle of the-
alluded that Culhane does know. So I don't know if Duke knows. So that's
Well,
going to be interesting.
it'll be very, very interesting as well. So, Jack 61, can we have a look at slide A12, unless anyone's got any other comments? And we welcome Travis. Welcome. So, another event occurred on November the 10th, and that is Julie Kramer and Brutus. They went using an ATV. They went down to the Manitowoc County gravel pit, right? And Brutus gives an alert and a bark in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, alert 15. This is November the 10th. And I quote, Brutus barked and dug at the burned area in the concrete. How much more information do you need to be hit in the head that this is a significant finding? Because Brutus detects human, not animal, human decomposition. To make matters worse, guys, right downstream to the right of where Brutus hit, they found evidence tag 8675. 8675 contained pelvic bones, cut, burnt pelvic bones, which Dr. Eisenberg, who Kratz said was the smartest woman he's ever met, refused to classify them as human. She said, suspect, possible human. So wait a minute. Not only are all those heavyweights in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, we have Sergeant Jason Jost on November the 7th with 4 cadaver dogs in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. We've got Josh Redont, who said he saw the entire Manitowoc County gravel pit flood lit. Then on the 10th, you've got all the heavyweights, the 2 investigators, the sheriff, the medical examiner, the correctional officer, and Lord knows who else was down there. And Brutus gives a hit. Kratz said, nothing to see here, guys. I'm spending 20 seconds. Let's go around the panel and in chat. What do you think of Kratz's 20-second comment? Alice, what do you think?
Well, you know my opinions, Doc. It's all a load of bollocks. The whole fucking scenario that he told that court is bollocks, and he knows it. And that's why he says that he's only going to spend 20 seconds on it, because he didn't want the jury getting any further thinking Well, if these bones are found in the quarry and things like that, then how the hell did Stephen manage to burn her in the burn pit? And he could not have that. They could not. They couldn't have the jury. He had them out the palm of his hands with what he was doing. And he couldn't let them get distracted, even though Dean and Jerry tried their best to bring in these things and everything like that. Kratz had the meeting out the palm of his hand, and they swallowed it. They swallowed it left, right, and centre. And he done what he set out to do and only spoke 20 seconds on the bones so that they wouldn't think about it. If they had the chance to think about it more, I don't know about anybody else on the panel, but if they'd have had the chance to think about the bones a hell of a lot more than what they did, I don't think they would have came back with the conviction that they came back with. I really, really don't.
I do agree. Both Stephen and Brendan will not be sitting in prison today. And, the thing that's very, very disturbing is that according to Dr. Eisenberg, who examined all of the cremains, all of them, she concluded that there's one victim, not 2 or 3, one victim. And please note, no bones have been tested. No bones have been tested. NDB, why did Kratz only want to spend 20 seconds about the Manitowoc County gravel pit?
Because he was lying and he wanted to concentrate on the burn pit and deflect everything away from the Manitowoc County gravel pit.
I agree, Andy B. And how, guys, isn't it going to be interesting whether convicting a murderer is going to talk about anything about Cuss Road and about the Manitowoc County gravel pit? I'll be very interested to see what they say, especially about the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Andy B, any other comments?
Yeah, you just mentioned the convicting. I'm sure there is an aerial photograph of Cuss Road in that trailer, so they probably will address it. But whether or not they address the facts around it will be interesting to see.
Oh yeah, yes it will. Okay, thank you, Andy B. What about you, Dark Side of the Moon? Why did Kratz only want to spend 20 seconds at the Manitowoc County gravel pit?
Because he didn't want anybody questioning about the bones. He wanted to make it sound irrelevant, so he did. And then if I was in the jury too, I would be the same too. If he said that to me, I would be all like, right, I believe him. Them bones don't matter.
Correct. 100% correct. Thank you so much, Dark Side. What about you? I don't recall. Why did Kratz only want to spend 20 seconds there?
Well, like the other said, he didn't want the jury to focus on that. Didn't he say something about little flags and stuff, trying to make fun of the defense?
Yes.
So, yeah, he didn't want them to think about that.
Correct. Jack 61, what about yourself?
Well, like everybody else, Kratz had to divert their attention. He did not want anything focused on that quarry. He had to. Number 2, let's just think about this while we're talking. Can you imagine if this interactive map had been shown, had the defense had shown it? He would have killed the case. It would have killed it.
Correct. You mean if we did a couple of podcasts in front of the jury and just showed them all this stuff and the interactive map of your ears, it would have been party over.
Done.
Kratz would have run out of the court, right?
Yeah, that's right. And Eisenberg refusing to just simply put these bones under a microscope. So simple. And she refused to do it.
It's a travesty. It really, really is. Thank you, Jack 61. Neverly, why did Kratz only want to spend 20 seconds there?
Well, we know that that would be a red flag, not just red in color, but also in putrid bullshit flag Because
Correct.
we know by now that he wanted to minimize, deflect, hide, suppress what was going on over there.
And
Trivialize.
trivialize.
Exactly. So
Correct.
he addressed it right away, but he minimized everything and trivialized. That's even a better word. But as I said, by now we know how he breathes, what he's capable of, and what he's willing to do.
Correct. And I do agree.
And Eisenberg is in the same boat, I believe, because she was so non-committal. And what Jack said, for her to refuse to put a freaking sample under the microscope.
Under the microscope. Correct.
That's just...
She refused to do it.
Yeah, right there, that should have been thrown out. And let's just remember and remind ourselves that she did 2 reports.
Yes.
Not just 1. She did 2.
Correct.
No,
correct.
She did 3.
I'm
3
sorry.
reports.
3.
Yeah, we have them all.
Yeah.
We have all 3 reports.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do agree with. Sorry, Neverly, keep going.
I just wanted to say, Craig Swalby in the chat said, wow, jury should have been allowed to go to the sites. All of them, exactly.
That's what I was going to agree with.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to agree with. You're right. And you can imagine if the jury was brought out to where Growell was, and they say, you smelt what? And you're saying it came from where? It would have been party over, especially if they went to the Manitowoc County gravel pit and also at Cuss Road, right? Then jury never got a chance. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? A13. So this is what Julie Kramer wrote in her report, right? Neverly, can you see that? Do you see that? A13?
Yes, I do.
Can you please read it out? This is what Kramer wrote in her report about what Brutus found. Let's go for
Julie
it.
Kramer, sure. In an area of large concrete slabs, several burn piles had been marked. Canine Brutus barked in 2 separate locations in this pile. Alert number 15. These locations were double flagged for identification once the locations were logged, mapped for evidence. In both locations, Brutus barked and dug at the burnt area in the concrete. So that's like a super red flag. He was barking and digging. We were transported back to command post after this assignment was complete. We were dismissed from the scene at 4:30 p.m. And that was on November 10.
Yep. Now notice, no one held Brutus back. No one prevented Brutus from doing his job. Do you get the hint that I'm trying to get at here? Brutus was free to sniff and check. What did Pagel prevent Loof to do at Cuss Road? Jack 61, you want to remind everybody what Pagel prevented Loof from doing?
From crossing the crime scene tape and go to the disturbed earth area.
Notice, did anyone stop Brutus in the Manitowoc County gravel pit? Nobody, right? Did you hear what Neverly just read out? He barked and started to scratch. What? All of a sudden, nobody was complaining about contaminating the crime scene? Notice the difference. Pagel prevented Loof from crossing the crime scene tape. The argument was, well, you don't want Loof to contaminate the crime scene. And yet here was Brutus, a cadaver dog, free to roam in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, and barked and alerted and dug. Jack 61.
He could have been leashed and prevented from, just disturbing anything. That he could have just allowed to give the alert without actually doing anything really physical to the disturbed earth area, and that wasn't allowed at all.
Correct. Now, Brutus is not specific for Teresa Hallbark, but Loof is. Loof is. So you got to account for what a scent dog is doing at Cuss Road near the crime scene tape and Pagel prevented Luth from crossing the crime scene tape. Yet, on November the 10th, Pagel, Fassbender, Wiegert, the medical examiner, and somebody else were at the Manitowoc County gravel pit. They never stopped Brutus, right? Now, isn't that interesting? All right. So, guys, do we have any comments? Okay. Now, before anybody asks, I don't know whether they put the bloodhounds in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. I haven't read anything about the bloodhounds there, but wouldn't that have been interesting? All right. So, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So, lo and behold, there were photographers down at the Manitowoc County gravel pit, and have a look at this. There's the concrete slabs. That's concrete. And it's double flagged. There's the 2 red flags. And there's a guy who just dug out the material from that site. Now, isn't that interesting? And you see that picture there of that guy digging? Does he look like anybody that you've seen before? With that face, glasses, and stuff.
Yep.
Who does he look like, Jack 61?
Jason Yost, Sergeant Yost.
Or the bucket man.
Literally in front of the buckets. He's got a very, I'm not saying it's him, but he has a very strong resemblance to Jason Jost.
I think it is him.
Not saying it's him, but I'll tell you what, wouldn't that be incredible? In fact, Jack 61, do you have the picture of Jason Jost handy, or is it too difficult to find?
I think I do. Give me just 1 second here.
If you could bring it up quickly, that would be very interesting. I didn't want to become too controversial by showing a side-by-side comparison, but he has a very strong similarity to Sergeant Jason Jost. I'm not saying it's him, but very interesting. So here are the 2 flags, and this is the area that Brutus hit, and you can clearly see that they dug it out, right? 4 buckets of stuff, and that's where they started to sift the material out. Jack 61, are you able to get a picture of Jason Jost, or we'll do it next week?
I got it. Just a second.
I just put one in the on-air text.
Okay. On air text? Okay. I'll just wait for Jack 61. Jack 61, are you getting that picture? Or we'll do it next week? You've got your microphone muted. You're muted.
It should be up.
Here we go. Here we go.
Sorry.
What do you reckon, guys? No, not at all. What do you reckon, guys? Is there a resemblance?
Just
what about people in chat?
That grin on his face. Otherwise, yeah.
Yep. Guys, what do you think in chat? Do you reckon that's Jason Jost in the Manitowoc County gravel pit digging out the bones? And don't forget, Jason Jost was there on November the 7th. So that's interesting. What do you think, guys?
I think
it
it's
could
him.
be. It could be not. It could be not. All right. Now, Jack 61, are we able to get slide A15, please? We're nearly finished, guys. We'll do a few more slides. So quite clearly, they flagged it. They dug out the stuff, right? But it gets better, right? On November the 11th, they start finding the debris piles in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. And one of the debris piles is 8675, right? So they dug that out, collected it, and then sifted it. and you're not going to believe what they found there, right? So now I don't believe that Brutus either went to this area or hit on this area. That I don't know. This is a separate area to where Brutus hit. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So they collected the material, 8675, the debris pile, and what they did was, I think either Eisenberg or somebody else sifted it, right? So on the left-hand side, you can see the paper bag that contained what they collected at the debris pile that contained 8675. In the middle, you can see that they sifted the bones. They separated the bones. You can see that large pile, that's animal bones, right? They're obviously animal bones, probably bones from a deer. But to the right-hand side, up on the top, notice what they are. This is what Eisenberg refused to classify as human. She called them possible human burnt, cut pelvis fragments. But guys, can you see that they look very, very different to the bones down below, the obvious animal bones? She was terrified and refused to classify them as human. But quite clearly, they look very different to the animal bones. Guys, do we have any comments? Jack 61.
Yeah, it's just, I think, a gigantic miss of Beauty and Strang of not hiring their own experts to examine those bones, right, at the time, in real time. Put them under a microscope, and instead of just taking her word for it, bringing in because they could have subpoenaed, they could have had as much right to examine those bones as the state.
Correct. But guys, can you see this would have been enormous in a court of law where a independent forensic anthropologist would have said, yep, I've done my analysis, they're human, which means what on earth is part of Teresa Halbach's pelvis doing all the way out here, and her other part of the pelvic bone was found in the burn pit in the box of bones. So can you see that if Eisenberg stated that these bones are indeed human, the case is going to fall apart. The case is going to fall to pieces, because why would Stephen leave some of the bones in his burn pit and bring the rest over here? It made no sense. Alice?
Yeah, just to pick up on what you were saying about Jerry and that, I wish that they did hire experts, because they would have been able to knock this out the park, in my opinion. And quite frankly, I do not trust anything that Eisenberg has said or written or anything like that. If she can get a fucking fetus mixed up for a fucking chicken bone, then
Correct.
She doesn't deserve to be in the job that she's in. So I wouldn't trust her as far as I could fucking throw her. You know what I mean? So anything that's done in a report that she has done, I don't believe for a second. I don't even believe it 10%, never mind 100%. You know what I mean? If she can get something as crucial as a fetus mixed up with a chicken fucking bone, then she shouldn't be in the profession that she's trying to make out that she's an expert in. It's plain, straight and simple.
Right, but you know what's disturbing is the mere fact that they put these bones aside. They never lumped them with the animal bones, right? The obvious animal bones down below. And if you notice, the animal bones, they're not fragmented. That's the clue. They're not fragmented, right? So someone dumped a collection of suspect human bones with animal bones. And I'll tell you what, if you're going to do a cremation or a burning event, You mix the two together, you dump them from a burn barrel, and no one's going to know. And because it was a debris pile, the debris piles, it's like someone got a burn barrel and tipped it over, right, Jack 61? They're ash piles, right? They're ash piles. So people are obviously going to the Manitowoc County gravel pit and using it as a dumping ground for their contents of their burn barrels. Now, isn't it interesting that in Yonder burn barrel number 2, we find 4 cut, burnt human bones? And Yonder burn barrel number 2 was hit by Brutus. So, I don't know. This is too weird. So, quite clearly, Eisenberg put these bones aside. They're different to the animal bones. And if you notice, those bones are on the right-hand corner. They're burnt, they've got cut marks, and they're fragmented. Wow. And Eisenberg refused to classify them as human, Jack 61.
Yeah, I pulled up the photograph so I could zoom it. It's for a better view.
Beautiful.
I mean, it's clear.
Beautiful.
It's clear as a bell. Yeah.
Yep. So you can see, guys, you don't have to be a forensic anthropologist. You can see that the bones down below are very different in morphology and shape to the bones up above, right? And so what we have up above is the potential of a human pelvis, fragmented, cut, burnt. It's unbelievable. But Eisenberg refused to say that they were human. All she had to do was place the bones under a microscope, right? And as Alice pointed out, she worked on the Sean Rudy case, the Christine Rudy case, and mistook animal bones as human fetal bones. So I reckon that she was so terrified of making a mistake, she said suspect, possible, human, right? But if they are human bones, how on earth can you explain it, right? You can't explain it. And they even put a GPS coordinate. So it was a significant find. Kratz did not want you to question these bones. Ignore them. Kratz is basically saying, I'm going to spend 20 seconds. They're not evidence at all, etc., etc. But please note, this is not where Brutus hit, right? This is not where Brutus hit. Brutus hit on the other pile that was collected as well near the concrete slabs. This is another pile. There were 3 of these piles, and you saw in Eisenberg's report, right, Jack 61, cut, burnt, human bones.
That's right.
Jack 61.
That's exactly right. And again, you know, we've said it so many times. Why didn't Beating and String hire an expert and subpoena those bones and have them properly examined to determine? Put them under a microscope. It would have taken no time at all. I guess it was a money issue, but you know, just I can't think of the guy that they did hire. All he did was look at photos, right?
I agree. Yeah, he just looked at photographs.
I
agree. Correct.
Yeah.
It's not. No, it's not enough. You needed to have analyzed those bones under a microscope and did serological testing to determine whether they're human or animal. Now, what on earth, if that belonged to another female or another victim, don't you think you want to know if there's a missing person? They never did. They never investigated it, right? But Eisenberg, who saw all the cremains, who weighed all the cremains, said, no duplicate bones here, guys. These are not bones from a male. They're bones from a female. One person. Except, and Neville will back me up, where's the other 50 to 60% of the skeletal remains of Teresa Horbach?
Well, we don't want to talk about that either, right?
They don't know. They don't know where they are. They don't know where they are. So Jack 61, this is going to really roll Neville up. If we have a look at slide 17, this is something I still can't work out, right? The medical examiner on November the 10th signs Teresa's death certificate. Guys, I'm speechless. How
Shocking.
could he sign
Shocking.
Teresa's death certificate before they tested the DNA of the blood that was found in the RAV4? Tell me, guys, why did Kleiser sign this death certificate on the very same day that all the big boys were in the Manitowoc County gravel pit? I don't know. Neville, you got any
Speechless
comment?
and shocking. And there's so much wrong with this death certificate to begin with. But for him to be called and to go there on the same day, right? He wasn't shooed away. He wasn't forbidden to go there. He was called to go and he went. How could he identify Teresa Halbach and pronounce her deceased?
That's a mind bender.
Based on what?
Well, this is it. And this is why I get back to Cuss Road. Because they found something with her name or credential on it. So they're able to do a positive ID, but they didn't have any DNA to prove it, right? Until Fassbender got the pap smear as a standard. But guys, you're not going to get anything more serious than this. A medical examiner pronouncing you dead without having done any forensic testing. How the hell can you do that, guys? Neville.
And hold on. Am I seeing this correctly? Isn't this Avery's Stevens address?
It is. And that's the reason I pulled it over here and zoomed it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But he was in the quarry. Come on.
And he was in the quarry.
Yep.
County of injury is Manitowoc. Location of the injury is Stevens' address in Twin River.
And he never went there.
And he never went there.
Speechless.
And there was something else. Yeah, shocking and speechless.
And
autopsy was performed. Autopsy was performed on what? On her trunk? Or was that a lie?
I don't know. I can't answer that question. Alice.
Place of disposition. Temporary storage, Calumet. Can you move it, please? Yeah. Temporary storage, Calumet County Medical Examiner. Place of disposition.
Yeah. Like temporary storage. You know what I mean? No, even a proper medical examiner. That should just say medical examiner of Calumet County or Manitowoc County, not a temporary storage.
Was there a temporary storage?
What are they just holding her remains there for 10 minutes and then letting her go? You know what I mean? It's, oh my God!
What I'm saying, was there a temporary storage somewhere over there in the quarry?
Well, look, it said date pronounced dead, November the 10th. How can you pronounce someone dead if you haven't done any identification?
And how can you do autopsy if you don't have a fucking body, pardon my French?
Well,
or
how do you know what they found?
Exactly.
Yeah, how do you know what they found?
Because according to Pagel, we found body parts.
And we're going to play that call.
Yes.
We're going to play that call. Jack 61. Thank you, Alice. Jack 61.
Oh, crap. Sorry.
Right. So anyone in chat, can you explain the death certificate? Can anyone explain it? Because I cannot explain it. What the hell? Now, don't forget, they prevented Deborah Kakach, who's the coroner, from coming onto the Avery salvage yard, point blank. They threatened to arrest her if she stepped foot on the Avery salvage yard. We have Michael Kleiser, who's in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. He's in the quarry. You got Fassbender. You got Uyghur. You got Pagel. You got a hit by a cadaver dog, Brutus. And now you've got Kleiser signing Teresa Halbach's death certificate on November the 10th. I cannot explain it. And it says autopsy performed. Neville, are you triggered?
Yes, very. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm gonna go away.
Can anyone explain it? I cannot explain it. I'm at a loss. Right. Okay. So, guys, I want to do a few more slides because we've covered a hell of a lot. But this is intriguing. Now, Kathleen Zellner is no dummy. Have a look what she wrote in one of her filings, and it's unbelievable, and that it's very, very close to what we've found over the last many, many podcasts. Neville, do you see it?
Yes, I do.
A18. Have a look. Have a look what she wrote in her filing. This was done years ago. Let's go for it.
Okay, the gravel pit and item CX.
Yes.
Other incriminating evidence linking the Manitoba County gravel pit to the crime scene. In addition to the human bone fragments found in the gravel pit, there is an abundance of old and new evidence establishing that the crime scene was in the gravel pit and not at Mr. Avery's residence and garage. Thank you very much. Miss Holbach's body was put in the Dassey burn barrel and transported to the gravel pit after sunset. The body was burnt in the burn barrel, and the odor was detected by Travis Groel on CTHQ. The scent and cadaver dogs reports corroborate that Miss Holbach and her vehicle were in the gravel pit. Specifically, the cadaver dogs hit on 2 burn piles in an area of large concrete slabs in the gravel pit.
Which we just shown.
Blood from an unknown male was found on a rock in the vicinity of the gravel pit bone piles and excluded Mr. Avery. That was the item CX.
Item
Quarry
CX.
bone pile and scent and cadaver dog maps are attached and incorporated herein as Exhibit 11.
Which we've shown.
Witness testimony has also linked the gravel pit to the crime scene. The edited flyover video show no tire tracks on November 4, 2005, leading to where the RAV4 was found, but the tire tracks leading to the RAV4 were present on November 5, 2005, strongly suggesting that the vehicle was driven from the gravel pit onto the Avery property and planted.
Now, guys, you have to admit, I don't agree with everything that she wrote, but God damn it, was she close. That's exactly what we found. That's exactly what we found independently, Jack 61.
Yeah, I completely agree. She's really close.
Right? So we agree the cremation event never occurred in Stephen Avery's burn pit. And it's a real pity that she couldn't incorporate Bucket Man in her argument here, and the fact that Bear wasn't aggressive and didn't shoo people away, because that would have made her argument even more powerful. The fact that you've got Groel smelling something, but clearly the wind direction is wrong, suggests that if there was a cremation event, it was closer to him than the Avery salvage yard. Boom. Perfect. Right? And we have Sergeant Jason Jost with 4 cadaver dogs, and they even put GPS coordinates around that area. Remember, Jack 61? And photographs were taken, and we get refused, said, nothing to see here, guys. There's no photographs, Jack 61.
Absolutely. I mean, Grand Chute Police Department was called in to do photography, and they took a lot of the photographs are irrelevant, but there are several that are very relevant.
Correct. 100% correct. But this anecdotal evidence suggests that something really, really significant occurred in the Manitowoc County gravel pit and very likely at Cuss Road. The state did not want you to ask any questions about either location, right? Now, Cuss Road, there's anecdotal, indirect evidence that something major was found there. They suppressed it. That's suppressed. They couldn't hide the Manitowoc County gravel pit. There were too many sets of eyes and dogs down there. Jack 61.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the media reporting, there's really very little, if any. I don't think there's really much of anything on for Cuss Road that I can recall specifically.
No,
at least nothing now. That there may have been, and it was removed from these various news stations before they were captured. Pretty much the same for the gravel pit too. But you guys got to remember all the search team reports that were their photographs are not a PDF file, but they're photographs of dozens of these troopers and investigators that went and scoured that entire area.
They were all over the place.
They were.
They were all over the place. Let me tell you right now. And we've got the report by Eisenberg that talks about all of them, all the bones that were found. And in a lot of cases, Neverly read it last week, cut, burnt, calcined, human bones, all fragmented, right? It's almost like the skeleton got put through a rock crusher and broken to pieces, because all the skeletal fragments were cracked, they were broken, they were fragmented. It's really bizarre. And Growell smelling something on the night of October the 31st. Wow. And we know because of the wind direction that Hugh pointed out, it couldn't have been from the Avery salvage yard. The wind was blowing away from Growell, not towards him, in terms of the perspective of the Avery salvage yard. Jack 61.
It's interesting, you think about, and we, really started out with Growell's report, and he loads a hopper. Now, I don't know how familiar people are with what that particular thing is, but what he's doing, he's loading larger rocks into boulders into a hopper down to crushing type wheels. They crushes this shit down to whatever size they adjust it to, probably several crushers, to produce gravel.
Yep.
So
correct.
They didn't check that. I'm talking about the DCI, knowing that Teresa's bones were fragmented the way they were. They didn't check that hopper for anything, and in my opinion, they should have.
No, but isn't it interesting what Jason Jost wrote on the back of the report? He actually did talk about one of the machines.
Yep.
And he gave GPS coordinates as well and tracks.
Yep.
Guys, I am telling you, there's something huge that we're not being told about that happened in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Something massive.
I agree. Totally agree. Absolutely agree.
And
no doubt.
It's not us speculating. It's right there in black and white. Yeah. It's there in black and white. So Jack 61, we'll do a couple of more slides, but so I agree with Kathleen Zellner. Yeah. Alice.
Just before we get to that, Doc, I just want to pick up on something that Double D has said in chat. Hi, Double D.
Welcome.
She says, in my opinion, I think Butin and Strang could have and should have did a better job defending Stephen. Now, I agree with that in some sense, right? But what you've got to remember is this case, if I'm remembering correctly, and I'm sure my panel will correct me if I'm wrong, but before Jerry and Dean got this case was going on for a year. When they got this case, Kratz and his cronies bombarded them, and I mean bombarded them with boxes upon boxes upon boxes and boxes of papers and information and everything like that. Now, you've also got to remember that it was only Jerry and Dean that were working on this case. They didn't have, assistants and paralegals and everything like that to be able to go through all these boxes of information and everything like that to pick out all the the juicy bits. You know what I mean? So, in my
Yeah.
opinion, they did the best job they could with the information that they had, that they could find, that they thought was important, relevant, i.e. the key, and stuff like that being planted and everything like that. So yes, they
Correct.
should have hired experts. Yes, they should have had at least one blood spatter expert, in my opinion. They should have had one DNA expert, in my opinion, you know,
Yes, I
to
agree.
refute the points and everything like that. But money was an issue for them as well, because they only got a wee drop. I think it was something like 260,000 or something like that they got from Stephen's
Yes.
civil case.
Yes.
So, you know, and they had to travel and things like that. So I do understand where you're coming from about, yes, they could have put on a better defence for them. Yes, they could have. And they both have said that themselves. Both of them, Dean and Jerry, have said. And that's why they weren't bothered about when Casey was going for the ineffective assistance of counsel and her motions at that time. So I completely agree, but in my opinion, they did the best with the information that they pulled themselves and thought were relevant, and thought, no, the jury's going to see what we're seeing, you know, and not convict Stephen. So I hope that kind of helps you a wee bit, Double D, on understanding the way they had to apply themselves, you know. If they'd have had the year before, when it first started, to go through all this information, I guarantee you there would have been a better defence. They would have been able to do their job, because they would have had other people to be able to help them. But they came in
Correct.
late to this case,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
That's right, Doc, isn't it? They came in late to this
Yes,
case.
they did.
About
There were too
100,
many.
about 100 days.
Yeah, I do believe that Buting and Strang did a very, very good job under the circumstances. The trouble was that the state were giving him too much bullshit to deal with, too many rabbit holes to jump into. And don't forget that the defense that Strang and Buting put forward was the fact that police, Lincoln Colburn, were involved in planting blood from the blood vial. So the majority of their time was talking about the planting scenario. They weren't really spending a lot of time about the events that were occurring in the Manitowoc County gravel pit and potentially at Cuss Road and elsewhere. If you look at the Stephen Avery trial, it's a trial within a trial. It's the actual law enforcement officers being tried as being involved in planting. I do believe that they definitely planted the key, no question about that. But the blood, they barked up the wrong tree, especially with the blood vial. Now, they didn't know at the time, but had they spent more time talking about what the events occurred at the Manitowoc County gravel pit, they could have busted this case wide open. All they needed to do was to forensically independently test the bone fragments, the pelvic bone fragments, 8675, and it would have been really embarrassing. Like I said, how can you find human pelvic bones in two different geographical locations so far apart? The state would have been in a huge amount of trouble. But they did the best that they could under the circumstances. Jack 61.
Yeah, I think, that's right. That, there's two aspects. They were actually really trying to work on this planting aspect, but they took, I think, the wrong approach to it. I think they could have got there if that had went a different direction. And, I guess for them, they had to watch money out of pocket. I'm sure that. And these experts, some of them are not cheap at all. You got to pay for airfare and travel time, hotels. All, they have to pay for everything plus the fee. So I get it, but if this had come out and they were able to prove these certain aspects, there could have been a civil suit after this case was potentially dismissed. And a civil suit filed, they could have reaped some significant money, I think. But I get it. I do.
Correct. And as Crockett Thompson mentioned, and also we welcome TTM Fangirl as well, and everybody else. And sorry if we've missed anybody. But at that time, the proposal of using the blood vial was definitely a viable option at that stage. However, once it was shown by the FBI that there was no EDTA present, or likely no EDTA present, that was bust, right? But a greater emphasis should have been looking at events that were occurring off the Avery salvage yard, because it would have been a very, very powerful argument. And one area that they definitely were remiss at were the dogs, right? The dogs, the cadaver dogs, the scent dogs. There was very little information about them, right? And why have we spent so many chapters, so many podcasts on the dogs? Because the dogs gave a different narrative. And look what we've uncovered and discovered. It's incredible. And there's more. Don't worry, there's more. Now, as Jack 61 has got the next slide up, on November the 10th, look what Culhane found. Culhane finds that Stephen's DNA is present in the RAV4, right? So November the 10th is a very interesting day. But notice in her report, she doesn't know who the female DNA is. The blood in the RAV belongs to a female, but unknown, because at that stage, they didn't have the pap smear of Teresa Hobart, which begs the question, how did Michael Claser signed Teresa's death certificate on November the 10th, which is the same day that they're at the Manitowoc County gravel pit, which is the same day that Culhane finds Stephen Avery's DNA in the RAV4. Jack 61.
It was another Manitowoc miracle.
Correct. It's another red letter day, right? All this stuff starts popping out. So guys, what I want to do is finish the podcast, because next week, don't worry, next week we're going to dive into the burn pit. Trust me. And I think Duke's got some stuff as well that he wants to present. I want to finish the podcast, today's podcast, with a very interesting call by Pagel. You got to listen to what he says, because it gave the game away. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jack61, but this call is November the 10th, correct?
That's right. This call is November 10th at 5:54 p.m.
Let's have a listen to it, guys. Don't forget.
In other words, the same day that Claser signed a death certificate.
Correct.
That's
The
right.
same day that the death certificate has been signed by Michael Claser, lo and behold, we get this phone call. Don't forget, guys, you have to mute.
Yeah. You'll need to mute Discord and unmute YouTube to hear the call. So, here we go. Just a second. This call is about 4 minutes long. So, here we go.
JP. Yes. Got your case, huh? We got her. Cool. Man, oh man, we've been waiting for this all day. Cool. Uh-huh. So what, Brett just told me they found his blood, verified his blood in the car and also on the key, huh? Also on the key, the vehicle, he says he's never been in. Cool. Cool. Great. Yeah. Oh, this is fantastic news. Good. Hey. All paid off. One thing I got to ask you here quickly. Yeah. That skid steer, do we still need to take that down to Madison tomorrow or not? No, it's changed. What we'll do is collect it, and we're going to bring it back to the Sheriff's Department. We need to store it somewhere. Well, apparently we're storing the vehicles in storage sheds. We might as well just put that in with them, right? No, we can't have them together. Okay. They have to be separate because of the possibility of contamination. How about in separate units? We can't have the two vehicles together. We got to have separate units for all of them.
Okay. Well, instead of renting two, why don't we rent three?
Yeah, what we'll do is why don't we just get the vehicles tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm planning on doing that tomorrow afternoon.
And then we'll see tomorrow what the plan is on those other vehicles, the Pitster and the golf cart.
Oh, okay. So there's two units out there.
Yes. We got a Pitster.
Okay. Well, we can work on that during the day.
Yeah.
You can let me know.
As long as we've got somebody going down and getting those vehicles out, I guess they're short of space.
Yeah, Wendorf and Kaharski are going to go down tomorrow afternoon, either at noon or 1 o'clock, depending on when Dan can work things out at home.
Okay. And then we've got the...
In my understanding, the rental units are coming from Denise?
Yeah, Denise says we can use those.
Okay.
She's given us okay on that.
Okay.
And then we need to lock them up.
Yep.
The padlocks are down there. Okay. All righty.
We'll take care of that.
Yep. Okay, that sounds fantastic.
Anything else?
Nope. I can't think of anything else. We'll be going out and continuing to search the pit tomorrow.
Right. You found bones and body parts?
Yes, a lot more.
Yeah. Just so you're aware, I don't know if...
Yeah, I'll pause you a second. Bones and body parts? Really?
Well, he's actually... You got to understand how unbelievable this call is. Now that we've worked up to this point in the narrative, this guy is giving he's giving a shopping list of what they found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, right? And this is truly remarkable because Pagel makes this phone call at what? 5:54?
Yep.
And Claser signed the death certificate at 10 minutes past 4 p.m. that same day.
That's right.
So they found body parts. So it looks like a bone is not a body part. They would have found probably semi-burnt or unburnt human body parts. They identified Teresa Horbach, right? That's why that's why the medical examiner signed the death certificate.
Potential organs.
Just gave
potential.
Yep. Internal organs, probably half a head. Who knows? But they ID'd her. And he's not saying we found bones. And did you notice what he said? We're going back tomorrow.
Yep.
We're going back tomorrow. And that's exactly what they did. And that's where they found the debris. Remember I just showed you 8675?
That's right.
That's the 11th.
That's right.
Right? So, oh my God, he's just telling you what they found at the Manitowoc County gravel pit. This is Pagel. And we know that Pagel was there on the 10th. And he gives the same phone and he calls in on the 10th. I would have put Pagel on the stand and say to him, what did you find in the Manitowoc County gravel pit as your phone call? Oh my God, guys, this is remarkable.
Absolutely.
Shall we play the rest?
Yeah, I'll back it up 10 seconds.
No, hold on a wee sec. There's a question for Kelly McKellian in chat. She says, do you know what key they are talking about? Is this a key for Stephen Avery's vehicle or the RAV?
The RAV. And there was no blood on the key. That's the problem. There was no blood on the key unless there was blood, but it wasn't Stephen's because the key was wiped clean. And in actual fact, the key never even had Teresa Horbach's blood or DNA on it. It only had Stephen Avery's.
That's right.
Remember what Jensen said? I was told that it had the blood of the decedent. Oh, that's on the bullet, which IDMFL never had. So these guys are getting the wrong information. So they're probably thinking, oh, well, the reason why Stephen had his DNA on the key was because he bled on the key, but there was no blood. Oh my God, this is a remarkable phone call, Jack 61.
Yeah, and about the key, I mean, personally, just given where that cut was on his hand, if he was actively dripping blood, I would have expected for there to be blood on the key and possibly on that cloth part
The
too.
key ring on the fob.
Yeah,
that's why I said, guys, we need to MVAC it. MVAC it. Find
That's
out
right.
what's on there.
That's
I
right.
won't do that.
No.
Shall
no
we play
way.
the rest of the call?
Yeah, I back it up 10 seconds. Unless there's something else.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Yep. Go ahead, Andy.
Sorry. In one of the earlier slides, there was a report for either the 10th or the 11th talking about what they found in the gravel pit area. Am I mistaken in remembering that they mentioned a human foot?
No.
The charred foot. The charred foot.
Yeah, a charred foot. Was that human?
It turned out to be insulation. It turned out to be insulation.
Right, forgive me. It must have been.
Yeah, they said it wasn't a charred foot.
Right. Okay.
They're not meant to be finding feet, right? They're meant to be finding bone fragments, right?
Right.
But
and
yeah.
Also, Colburn wrote in his report when he was going to Maribel Cove that he found a box with teeth, and that's it. We never heard anything else from them about that.
No.
And that they did that Mickey Mouse business with Dr. Simley, and we know we're not going to repeat that story, how he put together 2 teeth, roots, and blah, blah.
Roots.
Yeah.
Correct. All right, Jack 61, shall we play the rest of the call?
Yeah, I'll back it up 10 seconds and we'll continue.
You found bones and body parts?
Yes, a lot more.
Yeah. Just so you're aware, I don't know if Brett briefed you, I put in calls to Outagamie. They're going to supply us with 2 guys tonight, 2 guys tomorrow.
Okay.
Sheboygan Sheriff is supplying us 1 tonight, 1 tomorrow.
Okay.
Brown is supplying 3 tonight and 2 tomorrow, but Brown indicated they were going to be charging us, and tomorrow's a holiday for them.
Oh, it is?
It's Veterans Day. But, as a veteran, it really should be a holiday. Just for veterans, at least.
Yeah.
But I told Brett he should review his staffing for tomorrow, and if he can cut out those 2 guys from Brown for tomorrow, because I'm sure those guys would be at triple time. So.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
So we should be okay tonight, according to Brett, and tomorrow he sounded somewhat hopeful that he could get his lines pulled back tomorrow. So.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a great night, Jerry.
Thanks for everything you've been doing.
Okay. You too.
Okay.
Take care. Bye.
All right.
Unbelievable. There it is in black and white. It's a pity that they never played that call in the court, because it would have been absolutely mind blowing. So, guys, can you see how we have independently, through deep diving and looking into what Jason Jose was doing in the Manitowoc County Gravel Pit and Redon's Quarry, how we looked at the cadaver dogs, we have independently confirmed what Pagel just said in his call, Jack 61. We've confirmed it.
Just to note, I'm 99.9% sure that Beating and Strain did not have these calls at all. I think they were.
I highly doubt it.
Yeah, I think they were put into evidence after the trial was complete. I'll check that to be sure. I don't want to put out misinformation.
Yeah. So this is fantastic because my field has always been in science. And whenever you do an experiment and you publish a paper, it basically means that anybody around the world can reproduce what you've done. Otherwise, they'll challenge it. And you see, what we've done is we've come up to the conclusion that human bones were found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. There was lots of searches going on by Jason Jost with dog handlers, 4 cadaver dogs that were hit by Brutus, who's one of the best cadaver dogs. And also that Josh Redon saw that the entire Manitowoc County gravel pit was floodlit. You've got Groel, who smells something. The smell would have had to be something close to him, not away from the Avery salvage yard. We've shown through the wind, the direction of the wind, that Groel was mistaken. Either he lied, he fabricated the report, or Sturdivant changed the direction of the wind, right? All he had to do was go from or to, and that's it. He had to change just 2 words, right? And there were, I think, anecdotal evidence that 2 girls close to that area saw the floodlights, or they heard gunshots or whatever like that. But all the activity was away from the burn pit, right? Pagel's phone call and the medical examiner, Kleiser, signing the death certificate on the very same day that Pagel makes this call and says, oh, we found bones and body parts. Guys, we've just exploded the state's theory. And who confirmed it? None other than Pagel himself. Now, how embarrassing is this? Don't worry, later on in the podcast, we're going to look at the burn pit, the sifting, item BZ, and we're going to go to Cuss Road, and we're going to look at the disturbed earth affidavit, search warrant. Once you see all of this, you will come up to the same conclusion we have, and that Teresa Horbach was not cremated or even murdered on the Avery salvage yard. She was murdered off the property. She was cremated off the property. What the investigators did, and I'm looking at Jason Jost, is he brought material back and dumped cremains in the burn pit because they couldn't work it out any other way. They couldn't work out how they were going to blame Stephen when you've got all these cremains all over the place. So what do? You come up with a bullshit story and say, I fed the dog on November the 7th, but he was very aggressive. I had to get 2 other officers to distract him. And yet on November the 6th, you have Bucket Man, which meant that there was a law enforcement officer right next to Bear. So Bear couldn't have been aggressive. That now gives an avenue to get close to the burn pit and plant dump bones. Just with a bucket, dump them. What we're going to do next week is we're going to look at Sturdivant and also Erdl. And what Sturdivant describes gives the game away, right? Because we've got the photographs from November the 6th by Trooper Reese. There is no pile of bones in the burn pit. And what does Sturdivant say? Join us next week because we're going to go through that. On the same token, you've got Duke, who's looking at the sifting of the burn pit, but also another very important item BZ. And when you see item BZ, it's not what you think it is. And so Kratz gave the false illusion and Culhane of what item BZ was. You're thinking item BZ, it's got to be the bone fragment, right? The tibia bone. Remember Neville, when Kratz said, oh, this is the bone belonging to Teresa Horbach, the daughter of Captain. You're thinking, oh my God. But when you find out what item BZ is, party over. Party over. Now, Zellner has got all of this ready to dump on a judge, but she needs to get in front of the judge. And that's why I understand Stephen's frustration, because he knows that he didn't do this. He wasn't involved. The bloody the sheriff himself is telling you what they found, but they had to hide Cuss Road. Cuss Road they can't talk about. Something
and the
they
Manitowoc
found.
quarry.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I have a
And
question,
don't
Dr.
forget,
Silk.
just one thing before. Don't forget Mikkel's quarry, where they found the tissue and the blood that Cohane said non-human. Oh yeah, something is going on. Neverly.
Did the jury hear this call?
No.
Exactly.
No. The jury heard a few calls. Colburn's. They also heard Jacobs. Have they arrested Stephen yet? They only heard a few of the calls. But this is a huge case. Huge. The state were at the advantage. They knew what to hide. They knew what the deep six. They wanted to make sure that Strang and Buting never got access, because if they did, it would have been party over. Remember, it was a Buting who asked Remeke, "Where did you hear that?" "Oh, we got phone calls." And he's there. "What calls are you talking about?" And then Remeke, right, Jack 61, then Remeke had to give the calls to the defense, right? They knew nothing about it.
Yeah, because they stopped the trial. They stopped the hearing, actually, and lo and behold, they get 30 calls out of thousands. 30 undated calls.
Yep. And we welcome Barb, who's in chat. So, so Barb, basically to catch you up, what we've been talking about is that there's no way your brother, there is no way that your son or sons were involved in anything involving Teresa Hallbach. She did exactly what your brother said she did. She left the property. Something happened after she left, because in this podcast, we've shown and proven by the law enforcement officers themselves that they were finding body parts, they were finding bones off the Avery salvage yard.
Blood,
right?
key.
Blood, you name it. And so they had to. Sorry, Neverly.
Sorry, Dr. Silkman. Kelly McCallion had a question. Also, if they have the RAV key, how does it show up in Stephen's bedroom later? Excellent question. And how come it has only his DNA, not Teresa's? And
Correct.
not blood?
Because look, guys, it's pretty obvious. On November the 5th, when the investigators first were on the property, they took Brutus inside Stephen Avery's trailer. Brutus gave a hit in the bathroom, laundry. No in the bedroom, nowhere else. And there was a dog, a cadaver dog, I showed it, that went around his trailer. Around his trailer, no hit. Which means that you can't have a bleeding Teresa Hallbach going from the trailer to the garage, right? There'll be blood in the ground. The dog will smell it. The cadaver dog went right around his trailer, found nothing, right? So when Brutus hit, Colburn, Lenk, and Remeke, they went inside like a rocket and they started taking swabs, thinking this has got to be Teresa's blood, right? The problem is all the blood came back as Stephen's, not Teresa. So on November the 5th, the investigators were going, holy shit, there's nothing here. Right? When the DNA results came back, there's nothing here. So how are we going to point it to Stephen? You do it 2 ways, 3 ways. Make sure his blood is in the RAV. That connects him to the victim and her vehicle. But that's not enough. They can't find Teresa. She's nowhere near the Avery salvage yard. What do? You put her key, her spare key, in Stephen's bedroom. That directly places Teresa in the bedroom. What do you do after Brendan Dassey gets coerced? You find Ida Meffel in the garage. So notice what Cohane actually did, what Fassbender requested her to do. Tried to put her in his bedroom or trailer and garage. That's exactly what the key did. That's exactly what the bullet did. Because If Brendan wasn't there, if Brendan wasn't coerced, you never, ever would have had the hood latch swab. Never would have happened. Item FL, never would have happened. And Brendan will be home. All he had to do was keep his mouth shut. But they coerced him and he got into trouble. But the investigators, when they went inside Stephen's trailer, they came out going, nothing's happened here. And what did Remiker say, Jack 61? I don't think he's involved. And Remiker went inside Stephen Avery's trailer and checked it. Because, no, there's nothing here. So what they had to do was they had to invent a narrative. How do you do it? You plant. And don't think for a minute that they wouldn't plant. Every one of them hated the Averys, hated the Dasseys, hated Stephen. They're thinking in their head, Stephen did this, so okay, he dumped all the stuff here, let's bring it all back. And you saw in the Trooper Reese photos, right guys? There was nobody around. There wasn't hundreds of people walking around. You know why? Because it was a no-show. The investigators were off the property, not on the property. They already went through it on the 5th. They found nothing. Then Jason Jost on the 7th happens to find a bone fragment in the grass. Jason Jost, who was in the Manitowoc County gravel pit with 4 cadaver dogs. I'll rest my case, Your Honour. All right. Jack 61, do you have a comment?
Well, I did. I was going to think, damn it, I've lost it. Maybe I'll remember.
That's all right. Well, look, guys.
Doc, under your scars in chat says,
Yep.
At full play, what do you think about the 2 pictures where receipts nor coins moved, yet he shook the table and magically the key dropped out?
Yep. Correct. The entire key, it would have been better if they said an alien from Area 51 came down and dropped the key. I would have believed that. Because the US government, it would have been better. The US government now agrees that there are UAPs or whatever, and it's likely that there are aliens being stored. So if they said that an alien came down from Wisconsin to Wisconsin and dropped the key, I would have believed it. I would have said, yep, I believe it. It's a complete joke. And the reason why it's a complete joke, because they never in their life would have thought that 2 filmmakers would have filmed the trial. And we are here in 2023 talking about it. They never in their life. And now convicting a murderer is coming out with a spray can, trying to erase everything. They're trying to make the 2 filmmakers the bad guys. And you saw the little short in which they showed them cutting out Colburn's testimony and transplanting it into another. And Colburn's going, why did they change my testimony? You fucking idiot. They didn't change your testimony. They edited out stuff that wasn't needed or required. And he made it sound as though the filmmakers were like the CIA. Guys, I don't know if I could stand watching it. I don't care if foul play's in it. This is going to do my head in. Right, Jack 61?
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say now when you were talking, about, all these various events. The goal, we can never forget the goal and what motivated it. It was the lawsuit. And the fact that Gregory Allen had now been identified as a culprit in a 1991 cold case. They did not want that lid to come off at all. If that lid had to come off during those depositions, we would be talking today. Guaranteed. No way.
I think you see the problem that was going on once Stephen was arrested for the murder of Teresa Horbach was that even if the civil suit went ahead, the judge and whoever attributes the money would have been saying, I award $36 million, but it's going to the Horbach family for what you did. You know what I'm trying to say? So they could have potentially usurped any type of funding or money or whatever. So Stephen could have ended up with 0. But it let the sheriff, Kacerik, and Vogel off the hook. They never testified, right? It's all about the civil suit, but it also would have investigated what Kacerik was doing throughout his time as a sheriff. And don't forget the Ricky Hochschlatter. There are many skeletons in that cupboard, right? So they had to put it to a shut. Now, you just heard that phone call. Body parts, blood, bones. They never said, oh yeah, we got it from the burn pit. No, that's the quarry, the Manitowoc County gravel pit. There's so much evidence that all the stuff was being found there, right? So Cuss Road could have been a temporary burial site. That's exactly what they found, a burial site. No one puts a peat moss bag and a rotten pallet in a temporary burial site. And no one has a helicopter flying for the entire day, taking what, Jack 61? 300, 400 pictures? And no one puts a big blue tarp and no one puts up tower lights to illuminate a peat moss bag. And no one puts that amount of resources at the one spot when Fassbender and Uyghur are crying that they don't have enough resources and people, right? The key to unraveling this is what happened at Cuss Road and what happened at the Manitowoc County gravel pit. We know what happened at the Manitowoc County gravel pit. We had dog hits. We got bones. We got everything coming out of there. The question is, who did it? Wasn't Stephen. Wasn't Brendan. Wasn't Bobby Dassey. Wasn't Scott Tadich. But someone did. Someone did brutally murdered Teresa Horba. Someone with a lot of rage, a lot of hate. Stephen was going to become a multimillionaire and buy half of Wisconsin. Where was the rage and the hate in him? All he had to do was wait for another week. And this is the bullshit. And hopefully through our podcasts with Open Mic, Reading with the Crew, we've been able to dispel. But now we're going to see what Convicting a Murderer says. And I'll tell you what, I could have written a thesis on just that stupid introduction that they did. And they blamed Making a Murderer of being deceptive, editing, spooky music. That little clip had the whole lot. Right, Jack 61? Right, guys? It's a complete shit show. All right. Well, look, guys, I hope that you enjoyed that podcast. Next week, we're heading for the burn pit. I promise. We're deep diving into the burn pit. We're going straight into the heart of the issue. And I'll tell you what, we're going to be discussing item BZ, everything. So please, if you enjoyed the podcast, subscribe to our channel, put your DNA on the thumbs up button, and share our podcast if you would like. That'd be awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's enough from me and the team. I'm going to pass it around the panel and let us know how you've been coming along. And again, guys, thank you so much in chat for your questions. Like I said, we definitely read your comments. And look at this. We did an hour just answering Hugh Fraser's question. And I'm glad that we had another look at it. Unbelievable. Jack 61, how things are coming along?
Well, it's been an interesting few days, Doc, and reviewing some calls. A few days ago, I ran across a call on November 6th at 8:10 a.m. from Pagel to dispatch. And he was wanting basically a certified officer to come follow a vehicle to the crime lab.
Oh.
Well, that's weird because the only vehicle that at that point had been seized was the RAV4. That's right. And allegedly, according to Ertl's testimony, it arrived up into the morning, 1, 2 in the morning, whatever the exact time was. But so I'm thinking, what vehicle is he talking about? Well, if you forward, or what is he talking about? He did say vehicle. So anyway, if you move forward, this dispatcher he talked to volunteered to do it. And but it turned out she didn't go, but another one did. Her name is Marie. And she goes.
Oh, wait a minute. It's not Marie Beth Veriali. Who's the crime lab boss?
No, this was a dispatcher, but she was a certified sworn officer. So
okay,
I can't remember her last name. I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, she goes, and I guess that she followed this whatever to the crime lab at the same time. Now I'm thinking to myself, well, wait, Groppy was called in first thing on the morning of this. Well, no, he wasn't.
Yes.
They didn't call him until mid-morning as his testimony.
Wow.
I had it completely wrong. So
yep, and don't forget when he got there, the driver's side door was opened.
That's
and
right.
Harrington wrote that report. That's called a locksmith.
That's right. That's exactly right. So at this whatever, and maybe in preparedness, he had this locksmith on standby. I don't really. It's not explained. We don't know. So the question is was it the? I've looked, and I've asked for help from the community, and no one can explain what the hell they're talking about. To me, it has to be the RAV. There's a second part to this, and I'm going to string together a series of calls, and I'll put it in a key call. It's going to take a few days to do it. Andy's going to clean it up for us, remove the noise. But at the same time, there's another call. Now, I think it was from Sipple looking for Jeremy Hawkins. This is a separate call. And this first dispatcher, she says, well, he left about 30 minutes ago. And he's like, are you sure? Because I guess he'd had some other communication. I don't know. Well, it turns out that Jeremy was there. He just wasn't in the dispatch center. I guess he was out in the garage area watching this trailer of burn barrels, standing guard for chain of custody issues because they were waiting for the crime lab to come and get these burn barrels on this trailer. So I thought at first that was maybe what it was, but it's not. This is a separate issue. And I went through the search warrant file. There are no other cars that are seized at that point. The Grand Am and the flatbed were seized. At Kravitz at 12:15 p.m. Yep, 4 hours later. Yep. So it wasn't those.
No, it has to be the RAV4.
So I've been to me it does. So anyway, I've been taking a deep dive. I'll put more of this together and string it into a key call. People can think what they will, but hey, if anyone knows that I'm something that I'm missing, please tell me because I don't want to put out incorrect information at all.
True.
So,
but
yeah.
Sorry, Dassey.
No, I was just going to say for tomorrow. Now, Travis was going to do an open mic a couple weeks ago, but he has some issues. That's all cleared up. So he's going to come on tomorrow, answer some post-conviction questions for us, tell us the process of how it works. Now, he can't get really too specific about certain things, and we understand that. And there are many questions that were put into a room that I created a couple weeks ago that I think he's going to try to address as many as he can. So 5 o'clock Central tomorrow, Travis is he's agreed to be a special guest and come on and talk about this. So hope everybody can come and participate.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
fantastic. I'm going to say, Jack 61. No, thank you. After we're all finished, people want to hear the call again, the Pagel call at the end. Are you going to replay it again?
Absolutely.
Yep, that'd be fantastic. Thank you so much, Jack 61. Next, we have, and welcome, Alice. So good to hear your voice. Really is. How are you coming along?
Yeah, not too bad, Doc. Not too bad. Glad to be back on the panel and that again. I have been keeping up. Excuse me. Have been keeping up, catching up on replays and things like that. And most of the time, I'm out with the dog, so I'm in the middle of the woods, and something is said, and I'll be like, "That's a load of fucking shite." In the middle of the woods, and some dog walkers look at me as if to say, "What are you doing?" So, but doing all good. Hopefully, now that I'm back on here and things like that, I'm going to start doing more things on Luke's case as well. Because there's been some more information, but there's other people who are jumping on his side as well. There's a man, Michael O'Brien. He was wrongfully convicted for 11 years, and he's out, and he's an advocate now. and he's been looking into Luke's case as well, and he came up to the protest at the weekend there that was in Glasgow, and he spoke at Luke's protest and things like that, which is a good thing. So looking forward to that. There's also been I don't know if you remember me telling you about when somebody's wrongfully convicted here in the UK and they get their compensation. Well,
have to pay.
Yeah, that's right. Our government take bread and board off them, you know. So
Correct.
half of their compensation goes back to the government because the government has gave them a roof over their head and a bed to sleep in for being wrongfully convicted for the last fucking 17 years. Well, apparently that's getting re-looked at, and they're trying to deal with it because that's, in my opinion and a lot of people's opinion, that's the person getting sort of convicted twice. You know what I mean?
In the head.
And it's stupid. It's stupid. The government should be giving him the compensation, and that's it, period. Because they got it wrong, you know. So hopefully that'll be something that happens before Luke gets sued or when Luke gets sued. So yeah, there's a lot of things happening on the in the background and everything like that. So would like to just get back to doing videos and stuff like that. But I'm so glad to be back on panel and that people are happy to hear me.
We miss you. We miss you. You're the voice of reason. You're what is it? A steel fist in a silk glove. Boom. No mucking around. No mucking around there.
Unfiltered.
I say it how I see it, Doc. I say it how I see it.
Correct. And that fantastic. Thank you so much, Alice. Fantastic.
Thanks.
Next, pleasure. Next, we have that cheeky lad, Andy B. Andy B, how are you coming along?
I'm coming along fine, thank you, Doc. Yeah, it's been a great podcast again, and I feel honoured to have been on a podcast with both Alice and Dark Side of the Moon.
Fantastic.
Whoa.
Fantastic.
It's a pleasure. I don't have much to add other than that, other than I am enjoying my Saturday night as usual. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy B. Thank you so much. Next, we have Dark Side of the Moon. How are you coming along, Dark?
Everything's good. I'm glad to see Alice back and looking forward to tomorrow's live. That's all.
Thank you so much, Dark Side. Next, we have I Don't Recall. How are you coming along? And did you enjoy the podcast?
I sure did. Yeah, it was great. I did look in Queso for the Metz report. It was written by Dietering, and Metz lived at the corner of West Zander and Jambo Creek. So he was like northwest, I guess you would say. I don't know. I'm not good at directions, but in the report, Dietering wrote that Metz said the wind was out of the south or southwest. So creative writing.
Oh, yeah.
So that was interesting. Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you so much, I Don't Recall. And finally, we have Neverly. Neverly, how about yourself? How are you coming along?
Hi, Dr. Silkman. I'm doing great. Thank you very much for asking. Wow, I think I say this every podcast, but this topic, this subject, this area is actually one of my favorites for the reasons that we stated for the last 3.5 hours. So I truly enjoyed this. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Hey, and everybody in the chat, you don't even know how much we appreciate your support and all your great questions. Whether we have the answer or not, it really doesn't matter. It shows us that you know the case and that you're thinking critically and outside the box, and that that you trust us enough that you're not afraid to ask us these questions. So we truly, truly appreciate that a lot.
100%.
How are you going, Dr. Silkman?
I'm doing very, very well. This, for me, this case has done a 180. I think we can all feel it. things were very, very moving at a very slow pace, and everyone was getting very frustrated. This chapter, also the interaction with the Duke, the finding of Bucket Man, and now all this anecdotal evidence about the Manitowoc County gravel pit, and also the phone calls that Jack 61 is presenting. It's all coming together really, really well with an incredible narrative that we never saw before. And now we're backing it up with hard evidence, their own reports, their own words, their own actions. And just before I get Andy B on, isn't it remarkable how Pagel went in front of a camera or cameras with almost tears in his eyes. And he said, "This was the worst crime I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of things in my time, but this is the worst." And he's fucking laughing at that patrol, at that officer in dispatch, laughing like a 2-year-old kid. Yeah, we got him. We got our case. And he's laughing like an idiot. It goes to show what is projected in front of the cameras and what's behind the scenes are two different things. And that's Pagel the sheriff. Andy B.
I was just going to say, like you mentioned Bucket Man, Doc. Let's go out with the Bucket Man.
You want to play the Bucket Man, do you?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, have we got it? We got Bucket Man?
Well, I don't know how to access it, so I shall leave that to someone else.
All right. Well, look, guys. Again, thank you so much. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe, like, hit the notification bell. We'll all be, or most of us will be trying to be back for tomorrow's open mic. But what Jack 61 is going to replay now, as we leave the show, is we're going to play Pagel's call again. Listen very carefully. His tone, his inflection, his sheer delight. Now, mind you, they've just come across body parts and bones, and he's laughing like a 5-year-old. Something ain't right. All right, Jack 61, would you like to play the call again?
Yeah, first for our brother Andy, I'm going to do the Bucket Man for him.
Bucket Man. We've got to put that on a t-shirt.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Jack.
Absolutely. All right, I'm gonna get over to the call. I'll play the call, and then I'll put up the ending screen. And as Neverly said, we appreciate everyone. Keep talking about the cases. Keep digging. Find your own answers. Help. Whatever it is, whatever you need to do, and you find an interest in. So, all right, let me pull this up here, and we'll get it played.
Awesome.
Again, if you're in Discord, you will have to mute and unmute YouTube. Here we go.
JP. Yeah. Got your case, huh? We got her. Cool. Man, we've been waiting for this all day. Cool. Uh-huh. So what, Brett just told me they found his blood, verified his blood in the car and also on the key, huh? Also on the key, the vehicle he says he's never been in. Cool. Cool. Great. Yeah. Oh, this is fantastic news. Good. Hey. All paid off. One thing I got to ask you here quickly. Yeah. That skid steer, do we still need to take that down to Madison tomorrow or not? No, it's changed. What we'll do is collect it, and we're going to bring it back to the sheriff's department. We need to store it somewhere. Well, apparently we're storing the vehicles in storage sheds. We might as well just put that in with them, right? No, we can't have them together. Okay. They have to be separate because of the possibility of contamination. How about in separate units? We can't have the two vehicles together. We got to have separate units for all of them. Okay. Well, instead of renting two, why don't we rent three? Yeah, what we'll do is, why don't we just get the vehicles tomorrow? Yeah, I'm planning on doing that tomorrow afternoon. and then we'll see tomorrow what the plan is on those other vehicles, the skidster and the golf cart.
Oh, okay, so there's 2 units out there.
Yes, we got a skidster.
Okay, well, we can work on that during the day.
Yeah.
You can let me know.
As long as we've got somebody going down and getting those vehicles out, I guess they are short of space.
Yeah, Wendorf and Kaharski are going to go down tomorrow afternoon, either at noon or 1 o'clock, depending on when Dan can work things out at home.
Okay, and then we've got the...
In my understanding, the rental units are coming from Denise?
Yeah, Denise says we can use those.
Okay.
She's given us okay on that.
Okay.
And then we need to lock them up.
Yep.
The padlocks are down there. Okay. All righty.
We'll take care of that.
Yep. Okay, that sounds fantastic.
Anything else?
Nope. I can't think of anything else. We'll be going out and continuing to search the pit tomorrow.
Right. You found bones and body parts?
Yes, a lot more.
Yeah. Just so you're aware, I don't know if Brett briefed you, I put in calls to Outagamie. They're going to supply us with 2 guys tonight, 2 guys tomorrow.
Okay.
Sheboygan Sheriff is supplying us 1 tonight, 1 tomorrow.
Okay.
Brown is supplying 3 tonight and 2 tomorrow, but Brown indicated they were going to be charging us, and tomorrow's a holiday for them.
Oh, it is?
It's Veterans Day. But, as a veteran, it really should be a holiday. Just for veterans, at least.
Yeah.
But I told Brett he should review his staffing for tomorrow, and if he can cut out those 2 guys from Brown for tomorrow, because I'm sure those guys would be at triple time. So.
Okay, yes. Yeah.
So we should be okay tonight, according to Brett, and tomorrow he sounded somewhat hopeful that he could get his lines pulled back tomorrow. So.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a great night, Jerry.
Thanks for everything you've been doing.
Okay. You too.
Okay.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night, good morning, good day. This has been a Foul Play production.